wonder what the strategy was, or the reason was for not calling him in. A rather bedraggled Vincent Valls there in the white shirt walked across the pit lane. And number 16 has now gone back to Nicky Thiem, who was one of the real stars of the first stint of the race. Nicky Thiem then at the wheel of number 16. Christopher Mies was second and is staying at the wheel of 150, and Vanthoor stays at the wheel of 17. So you've got the cars refueled and back into the race on the same set of boots. There is the leading car then, Nicky Thiem at the wheel of it. So he's been given a very different track from that on which he raced earlier on, when it was hot and sunny and bone dry. Now it's dark and it's whacked and wet. Comes out of turns 7 and 8, which effectively, even though it's got two apices, is really one long corner, and then down the far straight towards turn 9, tight corner. The road then climbs uphill. So with 4 hours and 19 minutes to go in the Sepang 12 hours, we've got the safety car on track. And the field will follow the correct procedure. There's the Mercedes, number 35, Han Chen Chen at the wheel. And everybody now, of course, under the safety car conditions are slowed right down. This I can only assume is for the weather, because we've not been told about the retrieval of any car. So it looks as though this is because of the weather conditions. There is the safety car, frantically trying to find the race leader. The safety car is a Bentley, so we can say that Bentley leads.
Message
shortly
from the race director: we are now on safety car procedure due to the bad weather conditions, so we will see the situation in a few laps, and then if it's improving, we will release the car, or otherwise we will continue on the safety car.
So there you are, confirms what we thought. The voice you heard was that of Alain Adam, the race director, who calls for the safety car because of the worsening weather conditions, coupled with the fact that there's no light anymore, virtually. Certain parts of the circuit look better than others because of the fact that buildings are lit, but most people coming for the pit lane, I'm still surprised that some are staying out, really am, because you think this would be the ideal time to get the pit stop done. The leader will now be collected, but look at the gap between them, the top three as one. So what was half a minute at the end of the previous lap is now nothing at all. This has worked out very well for WRT, because not only have they got their gun drivers there, they're also back in the game. 31 seconds becomes 1.8. So now we've got a real race on our hands. And Alvaro Perrin pits in the McLaren. So we have now the timing screen updating itself, in fact. So Christopher Hasse replacing Christopher Mies. The transponder wasn't in the right place to begin with, but it's now been indicated on the timing screen that it is Hasse. The drivers have to do it manually. It can't necessarily be done by officialdom. The driver has to get the tag identity in the right place. So Hasse, but Vanthoor stayed in number 17 according to the screen. But Team Hasse and Vanthoor, first, second and third, and as one effectively. It's going to be a great fight, that. What it doesn't really do though is help necessarily anybody lower down, because if you were a lap back, you're still a lap back, of course. But I suppose what you have done is get closer to the race leader. So if you're really good on your toes, you can perhaps unlap yourself on the restart. You need to see, for example, where Andy Soucek is in the queue. If he could get a really good restart and get past the Audis, and I know that's asking a lot, but we know Andy is good, but it would really work out nicely for him to try and get back on the lead lap somehow. This is a replay of the 67 Porsche going AWOL, when Andrew Tang just missed his braking point for turn 14 and slithered off into the gravel, got out of the gravel, and then on the very wet, friction-free grass, found himself able to get back onto the circuit. The team manager of number 35 has to go to race control. That is the Mercedes that Han Chen Chen is driving at the moment, the Team AAI Hub Auto Mercedes. Han Chen Chen, successful racer in these parts, but had a Le Mans debut this year in LMP2 successfully. Got quite a few cars heading over the timing line, still playing catch-up, but this safety car period may be a long one. Just looking out of the window, is the rain still heavy? Do you know, I wouldn't say it's as heavy as it was a few laps ago. But this is where the race director earns his corn. He has to make the decisions and make sure that everything is safe. And a bit like we had the situation earlier, you'd rather call for the safety car than not. When questions are asked post-race, the last thing he wants is for cars to be flying off the road. And although we have had lots of incident and lots of drama, we haven't had too many cars out of the race. Only 2 official retirements, even though quite a few have lost lots and lots of laps, but they're still going, still circulating. And his Nicky team then, now who leads the way. Does this do anything to help number 11, I wonder? We've had the change for 5th, by the way, now. Andy Soucek up ahead of Sean Thong. Still no more news as to whether number 15 will ever get its lap back that the Phoenix team was concerned about. You heard Sean Thong telling Jack in the pit lane that they didn't think the timing screens were showing the correct story, and the red flag was the problem in that. But the situation hasn't changed. So there is the queue. You can see the standing water, got the rivulets coming across the road into turn 14. Audi 1, 2, 3, but it's a Bentley up front. The Bentley leads the way as they come over the timing line. Another one dives for the pit lane. Another of the GDL Porsches. The drivers now weaving around to try and maintain a bit of warmth, but also keep the tire pressures up as they head over the timing line. And now that it's dark and wet, I cannot begin to tell you how sad I am that Jack is out in the elements. This is only fair. And no doubt he'll be able to round up some drivers now as the safety car slowly leads them through turn 1. And there you see, as you go from a lit part of the track to, if you like, a natural part of the circuit, just how dark it is. So over the timing line has just rumbled number 9 Bentley, Stephen Kane. He's playing catch up to the queue, but he's still 3 laps down on his next target. So race order, still Nicky Thiem ahead of Christopher Haase, ahead of Laurens Vanthoor, Alvaro Parent 4th. He's had a pit stop, he's still on the lead lap, albeit a little bit out of sequence. And as the field works its way on lap 158, everybody bunched up under the safety car conditions, which are easier to manage than a virtual safety car period because you've got one line of cars. But we'll try and get confirmation from the race director as to why this is a safety car, not a virtual. I know people are asking on Twitter why that's the case. We'll try and get the answer for you and have it confirmed if we can. He's a bit busy at the moment, but we'll see if we can get an answer. So 4 hours 12 minutes remain, and still the rain falls as the field.
So, message from the race director, we are on safety car procedure because the full course yellow, the night vision for the signaling is really bad. So for safety, it's better to go safety car.
Merci Alain. There you go, that answers the question. Those of you that were asking on Twitter, thank you very much. The race director himself answers the question for you. How about that for service? But the point is about the signalling. It's hard to find the boards, and you have to get it absolutely spot on for when the boards go out for the full course yellow and when they're withdrawn as well. So it is, for safety reasons, it's easier to manage in the dark to just call for the safety car. So that's your answer that people are asking about on Twitter. The race director himself offers that. Where else do you get this in motor racing? So up towards the timing line they will slither, and seeing that the race director now only has to watch cars behind a safety car, if you've got anything else you'd like to ask Alain Adam, we'll be more than happy to keep him awake and ask him anything he possibly could wish for. I tell you, race control at the moment will be absolutely full of bits of paper and staring at screens and data and weather forecasts, and no doubt there'll be communication with the teams and the drivers as well, just for a state of play. The safety car team will be communicating with race control as well to let them know what the track conditions are like. The race director, as soon as he can, wants to get the race underway, I promise you, but he's not going to do anything rash, that's for certain. But he wants to make sure everybody is safe. But we all want the race to go back green as soon as we can, because there's a lot to shake out of it. But Alain Adam, very experienced race director, and wants to make sure that everybody is in good hands here. So as the field works now, lap 159, all the gaps that people have been building up a little earlier have all disappeared. Davide Rizzo has taken over number 11 Ferrari down in 7th place. And is there anybody else looking as though they might be making progress from lower down? Not really sure that they are, actually. Got a bit of a stalemate for the moment. What about, yeah, no, GTC has got a 4-lap cushion between the Yuan Bo Lamborghini and Will Bamber's Porsche. So that has, for the moment, sorted itself out. About the other classes, GT3 we know about, which is the overall situation. Then you've got to try and delve into the Pro-Am element of that as well, and that's where life becomes a little bit tougher, to try and differentiate between the Pro-Ams. I reckon that your Pro-Am leader is number 11 Ferrari, which is in 7th place overall. And then second in Pro-Am is 35 Mercedes, and they're only a lap apart. So Pro-Am could, given the fact that the Ferrari is struggling now, number 11, that could shake out to be quite an interesting little battle. So 11 Davide Rizzo, that's the Singer Motorsport Ferrari, leading Pro-Am, and 35 Mercedes a lap back, but second in Pro-Am. A lap, relatively speaking, is not that much in Pro-Am terms, so could be one to keep an eye to before the end. So that's, as I say, one to look for. And then the touring car class, I think it sorted itself out very early on, because 86, now Brian Lee at the wheel of the Toyota. Because that car is so much quicker than anything else, it's got a huge lead. That's done 129 laps. And the second place car has only done 109, so it's a huge difference that you've got between them. So 86, sorry, Kenny Lee ahead of Brian Lee in the second place car. So that's Toyota 1 and 2, but differing levels of modification and pace on those cars having an effect in the order at the moment. So the race leader up over the timing line, Nicky Thiem at the wheel over number 16, the former Formula Ford and Seat one-mate racer. He went to the Danish Touring Car Championship. He won the Porsche Super Cup the year Sean Edwards was killed, but although many people thought that he kind of inherited it, he had been winning races and was very much a major thorn in the side of Sean Edwards that year. They were having a good fight in the championship, and he was on a roll anyway. Nicky Thiem, towards the end of the season, he was a winner for Audi in the TCR series this year, before the Audi TT, in which he was racing, was outlawed for being more of a coupe than a proper touring car. But apart from driving for Audi in the Nürburgring 24 and the Spa 24 hours, he really has become pigeonholed as a Porsche specialist, racing in Carrera Cup Deutschland and winning races, and racing and winning in the Super Cup, Nicky Thiem. So he's been itching for the chance to prove himself in something else. And an Audi R8 LMS in long-distance racing has proved very good indeed. And again, engineers that work for the differing Audi teams have for years praised the likes of René Rast and then Laurens Vanthoor, but reckon that Nicky Thiem is something very, very special indeed. His father, Kurt Thiem, former single-seater racer, but was a DTM champion in a Rover Vitesse, and was a DTM front-runner well into the 1990s, driving for Mercedes in the 2.5-litre days of the category. But Nicky Thiem the race leader, but with Christopher Hasse right up behind him now in number 150. And Christopher, the former FIA GT3 European champion, Nürburgring 24-hour winner last year, Blancpain champion 3 years ago, and a winner of this event in 2010 as well. He is the man that runs in second place at the moment, and will be right on the tail, ready for the restart when it gets underway. But that is all rather weather dependent, the restart of this race. The year that Christopher Hasse won here, when it was the Modica Millennium race in title rather than Sepang 12 hours, he was sharing with Peter Cox in the Lamborghini LP560, the Gallardo, and Tonku Hammam was the third driver of the car. And cars can overtake number 14, which is slow behind the safety car, we're being told. So if you get to a point where you see any overtaking, it is, if it's number 14 at least, legit. That can be done. But as I say, Christopher Hasse was a winner of the event back in 2010 with Peter Cox, and currently is in second spot. Lawrence Vantour racing here for the first time, and in his comeback race as well, lies third. And then Alvaro Parent's McLaren is fourth, Andy Soucek's Bentley is fifth, and Sean Fong is sixth in the other Phoenix Audi, number 15. Alex Young having given over that car. Alex has not, I think I'm right in saying, actually won this race, has he? Even though he's been a regular in it, he's never actually scored a victory. Not for the want of trying. So, safety car stays out while the circuit is as wet as it is. And there you can see one of the issues, that big rivulet that runs across the road coming into turn 14. And the Bentley heads the field up towards the timing line once again. My bedraggled weather correspondent can impart news as to just how wet it is now.
I'm not staying out there in the rain, only a fool would do that.
I remember.
Yeah, no, it is raining pretty, but it's an odd one because it's like, it's all relative, isn't it? So it's like when you're going, you know, at 70 miles an hour on a motorway, and then suddenly you think you're going really slow, but you're still doing 30. It's like that. We've had torrential rain earlier on today. Now, I mean, this just looks like drizzle. But if we were, you know, in any other race, having not had the downpour we had earlier, it would probably be pretty heavy rain.
Heavy, yeah. And unfortunately, it's just adding to what's there. So the puddles are still filling up, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And this wouldn't be quite so bad were it not for the fact that it's dark.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so
we've been talking about Alain Adam, the race director, and leaning forward, hunched over his desk, there, radio in hand, is Alain Adam. Jackie Groom to his left, Mark Janssen, the chairman of the stewards, next to her. The other side of Alain is the event manager, Benjamin Franasovici, and relaxing in the corner is Stefan Rattel. He's keeping an eye on everything in that way that Stefan has, but you notice the man that's moving around the most, doing the most work, don't you? Alain Adam, trying to make sure that everything here goes as it needs to. I spoke to Stefan a week or so ago about this event, and I said, are you looking forward to it? Yeah, he said, I really am. I think we've got a really good race. He said, I just hope we don't have a lot of rain, because I think if we do with safety cars, that's not really what I want. Sorry to say, the weather gods haven't really been that kind to the event, but you never know, because although, yes, we've had a red flag and a race suspension, now we've got the safety car, what we have got are the three leaders, bang, 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 right up behind each other. So when we do go racing, we're going to have been helped by this situation because they've all bunched up.
Yeah, and also with Alvaro Parente there, lurking.
Yes.
He can find some pace in that 650S. Yes, he's 10 seconds off that lead trio who are nose to tail, and there's some cars in between them, but in the grand scheme of having had 8 hours racing so far, to be 10 seconds off the lead is not too bad at all. But the difficulty comes where it's difficult to measure when you're sat in race control, even if you're as experienced as Alain Adam. It's difficult to measure just exactly how wet it is. And how much drier it now is than it was before.
And that's why he's got the CCTV pictures, he's got these pictures, he's got radio contact with the safety car team, and the safety car driver is a regular racer here in 2-litre touring cars. So there's all that data coming back, but he's in the dry.
Yeah.
He hasn't got actual first-hand experience of being out there. He can only make the judgment call on all of the information coming back. And I suspect as well there'll be some discussions amongst the officials and the teams as well. Just looking to see if there's any immediate news from the teams on the instant message system about the conditions, because they are able to communicate to race control directly and ask questions. And in fact, race control are saying, what are your drivers reporting about the conditions? One team says can't see more than 200 metres. Another one says poor visibility. Aquaplane at turn 5 and turn 6. Phoenix Racing say too much more water. Red flag is shown. Here you go, too much water. Main problem is visibility. They can't see standing water areas on the track, even on the straight. Well, there is the answer. It is a red flag. And so everybody will head to the pit lane.
Everybody of importance.
Quite. Do enjoy, won't you?
Well, thank you very much.
And so now Jack's mystery pit lane tour will get underway. And
red flag. The weather conditions are really too bad. I decide to stop temporarily the race.
So Alain Adam explains that we are going to have another interruption, another suspension, not a stoppage, a suspension. And we'll hear from as many people as we can in the pit lane as the teams now once again will put the cars in the garages. And just as the drivers can cycle through, so can Jack and I. And I've had my soaking in the pits. Now it's Jack's turn. But I have to say it's quite enjoyable out there, because when everybody comes in like this, you've got lots of people to go and talk to. And it's not quite as frantic as live pit stops, because once they've got the cars in the garage, then it's a little bit more relaxed down there. Wet, but a bit more relaxed, I'll grant you. So the field heads into the pit lane, and with just under 4 hours still to run. So we will have the mechanics put the cars in the garages, and then we will be ready to go as soon as the conditions improve. But the track conditions too dangerous. And so, as I say, we have from race control confirmation of the race suspension. If the drivers are saying it's too bad, then that's all factored into the information given to race control to make the decision. And so red flag, well, there you go. Now becomes all apparent. And when the field is released, it will be, of course, again behind a safety car. So everybody down the pit road. I'll give you the order, because this is how we are at the moment, with a second red flag after lap 161. And the race leader is number 16 Audi Nicky Thiem. Second is 150, which is the Audi of Christopher Hasse. And third is 17, Laurens Vanthoor. Fourth is 55 McLaren, Alvaro Parent. Fifth is 8 Bentley, Andy Soucek. Sixth is 15 Audi, Sean Thong. Seventh is number 11, Davide Rizzo's Ferrari. Eighth, number 35, Mercedes, Hon Chen Chen. Ninth is 27, Ferrari of Dominic Ang. 10th is number 9, Bentley, Stephen Kane. 11th is 23, which is Yuan Bo, leading GTC in the Lamborghini. Number 7 is 12, Will Bamber at the wheel of the Porsche. There's 55, Alvaro Parent in the pit lane, in the pit box now. In 13th place, number 67, Porsche of Bruce Lee. 14th is 26, Audi, now with at the wheel of it Peter Cox's old schoolmate, Henk Kicks. Then in 15th place, number 51, Warren Luff in the Porsche, the GT3 Porsche. 16th place is 87, which now has Gilbert Ang at the wheel. In 17th place is 86, Kenny Lee. In 18th place is number 42, with Georges Caban at the wheel. 19th is number 69, Mitch Gilbert in his Lamborghini. 20th is number 33, John Martin. So two real guns there, but a long way down the order. And they're in Cup spec cars anyway. 21st is number 14, Brian Lee in his Toyota. And 22nd is number 602, Jim Hunter, the Australian driver. It's his team that runs the Subaru. And after lots of delays early on, that car is in 22nd place. And of course has just enjoyed the last hour or so, because it in the wet with four-wheel drive, absolutely ideal. But now everybody has to go to the pit lane. So the circuit for the moment falls quiet. This Sepang 12 hours, formerly the Malaysia Merdeka Endurance Race, is under suspension. And there's an example of the standing water that the drivers have had to cope with, but increasingly difficult in the dark, because you just can't see it, and suddenly you hit it and you aquaplane, and really the officials need the rain to stop before they can contemplate getting things back underway and get the water swept off the circuit. So this grew out of a 3,000 kilometre race that used to be run at Shah Alam for Protons, going back many, many years before the Sepang circuit opened, and now it forms into a proper GT3 race. And the future, despite the conditions for this race, looking very bright indeed, because more and more of the key brands and key teams coming to the event this year. So 161 laps are done, and the teams effectively get a free pit stop now, because while the cars are under race suspension conditions, it's been decided that they can be worked on. So you can see the McLaren team hard at work, and this has a purpose. So you don't get a penalty for doing this like you did, for example, at the Spa event, because these are sort of special red flag rain conditions, wet weather conditions, purely for this event. So it's not something you'd see everywhere, but while we have these lengthy situations, potentially lengthy situations because of the rain, then the teams are allowed to work on the cars. Alf Bora, with his back to us there in the polo shirt, he is overseeing what's going on at the FFF racing team, and it was Alvaro Parent, McLaren factory driver, that brought the car in. So I've had a look, and there you can see 4 drivers listed in the McLaren. So 67% of the race done, and red flag race suspension, while the conditions once more have a part to play in this, but really it never dried out properly, never stopped raining properly from the moment we had the first interruption. So it's just been wet for, what does that make it now, 3-4 hours? So we've had more wet than dry, it feels like. And everybody in the pits, and now the cars go to the pit boxes, into the garages, and the drivers can get a little bit of downtime. But of course this means that they have to, in some cases, start thinking about driver stint times as well. You have to have some of your lower graded drivers to do a minimum during the course of the race. We'll come back to that, because Alvaro Parent is ready in the pit lane to have a word with Jack.
So, red flag, Alvaro, are the conditions that bad?
Oh yeah, the rivers everywhere in the track, you know, aquaplaning quite a lot, but at the same time we were looking quite fast and making some time. We were, you know, gaining some time, so who knows if it continued, if we could have gained a little bit more, but definitely very difficult visibility, and you know, some rivers, some aquaplaning, very easy to make a mistake, you know, and go out. So I don't disagree, you know, with the red flag, even when you're winning a lot of time, you know, but yeah.
Have you gained time because you stayed out when everyone else came into the pits?
No, we also came into the pits and changed the tires. Well, I hope we were gaining time during the laps, you know, and that's what it looked like. So yeah, also the safety car, when we stopped, it was also good for us. We stopped in a good position, I think. So yeah, it was a good stint, you know, recovered some time, and but a shame it got so bad. If it stopped raining, it would have made things a bit more interesting.
So what can you do from here? Because we saw you looking quick in the early stages of the race, then starting to drop back a little bit. How's it going now?
Yeah, interesting. So on our dry pace, we were quite good for the first 45 minutes of the stint, really good, and then suddenly there's a bit of a drop off. So you have to be careful how you treat the tires at the beginning of the stint, and it was really hot. This basically happened in all our driver stints. So some of us managed to do a little bit better managing of tires than others, but you know, it made interesting, and we had the knowledge for the next ones, for the next stints. But it doesn't look like it's going to dry, does it? So you know, we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Alvaro Parent then explaining just how bad it was out there. But of course there is that double-edged sword, because although he was making some progress, then the interruption stops that progress in its tracks. So we've had 8 hours of the race. At the 8-hour mark, number 16 was the leader by just 1.7 seconds, and that was when the red flag was called at the end of 161 laps. So we've now got just under 4 hours of the race to go, And here at Sepang, we are under a red flag race suspension once more. We've had one because of very, very heavy rain, but now, although it is still raining, it's adding to the rain that fell, and the standing water, coupled with the darkness, is the problem. And on safety grounds, the race director is taking no chances, understandably, so Alain Adam brings the race under suspension once again. As far as resuming the race is concerned, just to read his briefing notes, the delay will be kept as short as possible. As soon as a resumption time is known, the teams will be informed via the timing monitors. In all cases, at least 10 minutes warning will be given. The car in front of the leader will be waved away. In other words, the pace car do one slow lap and then we'll be in business. But we're a little way off that just for the moment, because of course
the race will not restart before 8:30. The race will not restart before 8:30.
Okay, there you go. We've got at least 20 minutes. At least 20 minutes. Number 86 is in the pit lane. Kenny Lee, one of the drivers. Let's hear from him. He is with Jack down in the pit road.
Kenny, how's the race going for you guys?
Hi. So far, it seems quite okay. We don't have any incident or drama at the moment. The only thing is that have to go through, the rain. The circuit is quite known for a few streams running around the circuit, especially like turn 3, turn 9. But so far, well, through the few laps that I did a stint during the wet, it was quite okay. The tires still have some grip, but the visibility is really poor, especially when the GT cars have all the moist kicking out from the back of the car, and through a distance of about 200 meters, it's not visible at all. Yeah, so even in a couple of turns like turn 3, turn 6, is all blackout. Yeah, it's quite challenging.
So what are your aims for the remainder of the race? Do you think you can win the class?
Yeah, well, we actually have a good gap to the car behind us, and yeah, we're gonna just pace and get through this difficult situation. Yeah, and hopefully we should be still continue to lead and take the checkered flag.
So if we have a red flag for another 4 hours, you're going to be very happy.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's not easy. Driving at night, I've done for more than 10 years over here at night. Visibility is quite okay, but added on with the rain makes it really tough. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. It's a very different year this year.
So you've got a 20 lap lead over the rest of the pack. Is that because you've had no problems and other people have, or is it pace, or how's the race gone for you?
Well, at the start, we immediately after we saw the lead car that took the pole was having some trouble. We are trying to slow down our pace to make sure, well, we have our agenda on our side. And but throughout of that, we just keep a consistent pace, saving on the gears and some revs. And so far, the weather initially was quite hot in this morning. And then, yeah, so we survived through it.
Cool. Well, it looks like your guys are having fun behind you. So thanks. Thanks. There they are over there. Let's give everyone a cheer. So fantastic to hear how it was for you. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm glad they're enjoying themselves, Jack, as well. Despite the conditions, everybody happy. I suppose you've got a 20-lap lead. You are going to be relaxed and happy, aren't you? And that car, in fairness, has gone like clockwork. We might have only seen it perhaps when it's been lapped, but even so, it has gone very, very strongly and has been almost bulletproof, that. So, a good job done by the team. Right, so we've got at least 20 minutes, as I say, before the race is likely to get underway. And as soon as the race director is happy, then we can start to think about the cars being released back into the race. Just looking to see if there's any more news coming from any of the teams about their travails over the course of the race. But we have this red flag situation, and everybody then heads for the pit lane. And it is decidedly wet and horrible out there now. So understandable that the race director has calls for this suspension. Number 7, which is currently in 12th place overall, is second in class. It's 4 laps down on its opposition, but this has had a good solid run. I think we've only really seen it properly once. That's when it was spinning, Graham Dowsett at the wheel, but it has gone impressively well. And although there's a bit of damage, look on the left front corner, taped up, the NZ Motorsport Porsche looking pretty strong. So that car then should be good for the continuation of the race. Its target is to get up onto terms with the Lamborghini in the hands of Luan Bo. And that car has done 148 laps and 144 done by this Porsche. And it was Will Bamber who brought it in, the younger brother of Earl, this year's Le Mans winner. But a good mix of drivers in that car, because Will, who has been a regular in touring cars down under, plus Alif Hamdan, who was the winner of last year's event and has raced in the Porsche Super Cup and in Carrera Cup Asia with great success. You've got Graham Dowsett, who is part of Team NZ with John Curran. Graham's been racing in this part of the world for a few seasons, and John Curran himself, fascinating guy, because John, who is Irish by birth, has lived in Vietnam and then Thailand and then Africa and the West Indies, where he raced karts. So he's moved all over the world, done a lot of random races in random places, and now turning his attention again to this event. Class winners, in fact, last year. Now, Will Bamber, we've talked about, and he is one of the drivers of car number 7, is with Jack.
Well, a pretty decent race for you guys so far. In the wars a couple of times, a bit of gaffer tape on the front, but in general it's all right?
Yeah, maybe if you're going through these races and you don't have a bit of this, it's, you're not going hard enough. But no, we came from the back of GTC, and it's been going good so far, not too many problems. A few little things here, and the red flag has helped us out a bit of time to get on top of things, I think. But it's going to be a straight shot to the end of the race.
It looks like a pretty sort of close-knit team you've got here. I see, you know, John up sorting out the fuel bowsers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess it's a family-orientated based team. The guys are having a lot of fun, but over time, as motorsport always happens, they get more and more serious. Obviously, spent the money in the right areas for the car, so it has the performance now, and we just take small steps. But I think the most important thing is to have a good time, but now we're actually having to push the top-end guys as well, which is great.
And what's it like to come and race, you know, some pretty decent European teams and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic to finally have these guys coming over now, and I really hope it can grow even more. It's great for us here up in Asia, great for our sponsors as well, obviously, and yeah, all the best for the future. Hopefully more to come.
Were you in the car just now when the red flag came out?
Yeah, we were in the car. Just hopped in actually as the safety car came in. It was, yeah, visibility wasn't the best, but I think we can go racing soon, hopefully. It's great fun.
Looking forward to it.
But great fun. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Will.
Thanks.
Like the attitude, don't you? I want to go racing soon. You know, it's good fun out there in the wet. Others perhaps less encouraged, but largely, I think everybody is wanting to get back on with life. So there is the safety car out to go and have a look at track conditions and bring back some data. And again, by having a local team in the safety car that race here and know the circuit and know what it's likely to do, then it's very important for the race officials that they can have that local knowledge. So good to hear from Will Bamber in number 7 Porsche. And the Team NZ Motorsport class winners last year. Whether a repeat performance is on the cards, not sure, because certainly they have got a lot of ground to make up. So Audi 1, 2, 3 at the moment, and we are still, of course, with the same order while we have this race suspension. They'll be released in the same order, and in 5th is Bentley number 8, one of the drivers of which is Maxi Book.
So Maxi, it's a bit rainy now, so we've got the red flag, but your car's doing all right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not bad. We improved a bit on the tire pressures over the runs, and the car feels much better now. And it's a bit tricky now with the conditions outside. I was listening to the radio when Andy Suchek was driving that it's a lot of water on track. But I think, as long as we can keep the car on track, it should be fine.
And are you going to take over when the race starts again, or don't you know?
Yeah, I will take over the car, and maybe I hope to do some progress.
What do you think you can do in the remainder of the race? Because obviously in the early sort of stages you lost a couple of laps.
Maybe closing the gap to the guys in front, maybe being able to lap back, which is, I think, very difficult because I don't think that at the moment we can match the Audi. But I will try my best and have some fun, get some more experience for next year as well, so we'll see.
I swear every single race we've done this year, you've said to me, well, we won't be able to match the Audi, and then you ended up winning the championship. So what is that about? Is the Bentley sort of more secure over a race, but the Audi's got more single lap pace? How does that work?
Yeah, British understatement. And for sure we don't have the performance on one lap the Audi has in qualifying. We are evenly matched on the race pace over the distance. But you know, Audi showed the last years that they are always one of the favorite cars in the field, and we want to give them the ball to be the favorites, and we maybe do our own thing when nobody's looking at us. So maybe that's why we say it.
I don't want to know what you do when no one's looking at you. Thank you for that, Maxi. We'll catch you later. Let's go and doorstep some of these guys here. Who wants to chat? We've got Vincent sitting down. We've got Caney over there. Oh, Stephen looked away there. We'll go for Vincent then. He did it very much. I'm not looking. Vincent, would you mind standing up for us? Thank you very much. He's got his flip-flops on, though. But a real shame the way that your stint started. Do you know what happened?
Yeah, we had a
It's the humidity.
we had a little issue with the car to get it into gear, so we got stuck into neutral for a fair part of the red flag. So it's a shame because we actually had really good pace on the wet. I was surprised myself a bit to be that quick on the wet. I didn't have any laps before, so yeah, we were the second quickest car on that stint. So obviously it's a bit frustrating for my first race with the M Sport team, but yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah, I was going to say this is your first race with M Sport. How are you finding it?
It's a dream, you know, to be part of a factory team, to be a factory driver for the first time. Only 20 years old, representing Bentley. It doesn't get better. So I'm happy to have put myself a good performance for the team for my first outing with them. I think I showed some good pace and some good stuff with the team bosses. So now it's just a case of getting everything together, get the reliability, which we had all year, and we can't understand the thing that obviously could have broke is brand new. So it's just, I think, bad luck. And this weekend it didn't go for us in terms of pace and reliability, but I think we'll be there in the endurance rounds.
Cool. Well done. Keep it up. See you later, Vincent. Right, now let's see. Malcolm Wilson's just here lurking, so we'll just see if we can. Also, I'm feeling a bit brave now. We're about 10 hours into this, so I'm feeling like we can, feeling a bit pumped. Malcolm, can we have a quick chat?
Yeah.
How's it going for you today? A bit of difficulties with one of the cars, anyway.
Yeah, to be honest, we were really disappointed. We didn't have the pace early on, which was really disappointing. And there's no question the pace has got better as the conditions have got more difficult. So at least there's something positive to come out of it. And we had an issue at the restart after the race had been stopped with the gear change actuator compressor. But apart from that, then yeah, it's difficult conditions. I think it's the same for everybody, though.
Is this the first time you've run with the Yokohama tyres this weekend?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, first time that we've used them.
And has that been a little bit not difficult to get used to, but when you're used to running on Pirellis, for example?
Yeah, I think there's no question. You know, because it was a very late decision to go on them. Of course, you don't have all the experience that we've built up over the last couple of years with Pirelli. And certainly we found that the pressures were building up too high, but then which we got on top of. But then of course the weather came, so it's back to square one again, because obviously we've never run these wet tyres before.
But the number 8 car's in a decent position at the moment. What are you hoping for come the end of the race?
I think we came here with a clear target to try and win, and obviously that's, as I said earlier, it's a bit disappointing to be where we are. But I think if we could go away from here with a podium, then we'd be happy. I mean, we've learnt an incredible amount. We've never raced or in these conditions before. A lot of new things to learn. So if we can get one car up there, we'd be happy.
Excellent. Best of luck. Thank you very much. So that concludes my tour of the Bentley garage, I think, Adders. I'll go and see who's next.
Thanks, Jack. Yes, Malcolm Wilson and his son Matthew, of course, also involved in the operation of the Bentleys. Matthew started off as a circuit racer before going in Dad's footsteps rallying, but now concentrates really on overseeing the race programme for M Sport. But Malcolm is never far away. Even if there are clashing World Rally Championship events, he will try and get to a GT race at least for one day. And the Bentley programme, very important to M Sport as a business. Of course, it had never been involved in racing until Bentley rang up, and Malcolm tells the story about being told Brian Gush from Bentley is on the phone. He wants to talk to you about GT3, and he had to do some quick Googling before he answered the call as to what GT3 racing was all about. But when he came to Navarra at the end of 2012 and Bentley was on its way into the Blancpain Series, it was with a clear mission to come and win, and 2 victories in the car's first season in Blancpain in the Endurance Series at Silverstone and then again at Paul Ricard. It has been win-less in Blancpain's Endurance Series this year, but a very competitive car nonetheless. And that competitive nature of Malcolm Wilson, and indeed the strides and the position that the team is now in, illustrated by the fact that 5th and a lap down is just nowhere near good enough, because they came here as people that wanted to win. Now there is the number 11 Ferrari, and there in the background is Jack. So we're going to, hopefully in a moment, pick up on the story as to why this car has just lost all the pace. I think the last report we'd had was that grip was somewhat lacking, but was that down to tyres or the car or the conditions or all of the above? Hard to know really, when the weather was so wet, exactly where to look for the problem. And Carlo Van Dam gave the car over last to Davide Rizzo. This is the scene outside where there's less light. Grandstand's illuminated, but still the track is very wet, and I would suggest that the rain is easing, if not stopped altogether. But now it's a case of worrying about the standing water. But we are 7 minutes away from Alan Adams' 8:30 mark, at which he'll have another inspection, and we might get some more news after that. And we still have the rain falling. In fact, it might not be that heavy, but we will still have, I'm afraid, the weather getting wet and the track getting wetter as the standing water is added to. So we'll keep hearing from people in the pit lane. And the number 11 Ferrari was the next on the hit list, I think, wasn't it? The Singer Motorsport car. Davide Rizzo, regular in this part of the world in GT Asia and the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia, and the Asian Le Mans Series and Carrera Cup Asia. And prior to that, raced in Italian GT racing before he came to this part of the world to do his competition. Alessandro Pierguidi has raced in just about every GT championship going of late, in Ferraris or Maseratis. In fact, before that, he was prolific in the MC12. Number 35 there, the Mercedes, which Han Chen brought into the pit lane. But Hiroki Yoshimoto, Nobuteru Taniguchi and Tatsuya Tanigawa, the other drivers have also done a good job of keeping within the top 10. 8th, in fact, the car is at the moment. It's 3 laps down, but it's not disgraced itself, far from it. And engineers and drivers for the Buddy Club backed car, getting ready for the restarts. The Mercedes looked good early on, lots of grunt that car has. It was the type of car to beat in Macau for the new FIA GT World Cup race, when it was Mario Engel that was the winner a few weeks ago. But as the race has worn on, so it's in this race been overhauled and fallen away a little bit compared to the opposition. But as far as I can work out, not had a single problem. We may hear different to that in a moment if we can grab a driver, but it seems to have been pretty bulletproof, that car, and just gone on and on and on and on. And while it might not be the quickest car, it should be there for the finish. So there is the Mercedes, and let's piece it all together, because Hiroki Yoshimoto is in the pit lane and is ready to have a word with Jack and tell him exactly how the race is going.
So we've seen a lot of action with your car today, Hiroki.
Yes.
A lot of overtaking. Has it been fun?
Yes, yes, fun. And, you know, in the other part, we are a little bit disappointed because until the qualify, we were in the, in top 3 always. We were there. But during the race, we lost a bit of luck, and always when they, show the safety car or red flag, we were in the wrong position. So we are now like 3 laps behind. So, it's. We're a little bit disappointed, but still, we still have 3 hours to go, so,
Realistically, where do you think you can finish?
Well, it seems like Ferrari is having, a tough time out there. Maybe because they are using 19-inch, I'm not sure, but Taniguchi was about 8 seconds per lap quicker than Ferrari, number 11. So first target is to overtake car number 11, but we're a lap behind, from number 11. So it will take time, but I think we can reach him.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
So good to hear from Hiroki Yoshimoto, and his car is currently down in 8th place, as he says, a lap down on Davide Rizzo's Ferrari, and that's the target. But of course, that target might move a little bit depending on how much running they get, how many more laps can they get, because we don't know that until we know when the race restarts. All the team's pit strategies now go out of the window, because they've got to start thinking about how best to use the drivers in this indeterminate amount of time left. We know how much time there is before the checkered flag comes out, but we don't know how much time for racing there is because we don't know when we get a restart. We'll be a few minutes away from any more news on that before we get to 8:30, which was when Alain Adam had already said the race won't restart before anyway. At 8:30, we'll probably get some more news. There's the Be Quick Audi, which is 14th. Henk Kiks, having been behind the wheel most recently, the 53-year-old, with Daniel Bilski, who's been another regular in Asian races for a few seasons, and the Bangkok-based team running the Bumblebee, the black and yellow Audi, with Peter Cox, Henk's old schoolmate, and the 2010 winner of this event as the third driver. So as the teams, in many cases, have very little to do, because if the cars have been reliable, they just have to wait and wait and wait now. Some teams getting a little bit of work in if they need to do, but the majority of teams just sit and wait, and drivers, from experience, found early on in the day when we had the first red flag, all in their drivers' rooms at the back of the pit garages, either looking at data or on their phones or on Twitter, and just relaxing while they have this chance, some rare downtime in a race. It's quite strange, isn't it, to have these breaks where there's just absolutely nothing happening, but the race is continuing in real terms. So let's have a look at how things were earlier on when it was dry and hot and sunny, and look back at the highlights of the race. And interesting to see which cars were there at the time, because now the #1 Ferrari that led is out of the race with damage, but at the time it was Gianmaria Bruni behind the wheel, and he led from pole position, having taken that in the shootout for the top 15 yesterday. He was chased into turn 1 by Carlo Van Dam, and 3rd and 4th ran Stefano Ortelli and Alvaro Parent, with the Christopher Hasse Audi in 5th and the number 35 Buddy Club Mercedes 6th. That then did its best to work its way around the outside and bag of position, which it did, but it wasn't long before we had the first casualty. John Martin with quite a bit of damage after being punted off into the gravel. They got the car back, but he lost a lot of time, and Jimmy Bruni's woes started by going around the outside of the Anthony Chan Lotus. The Lotus out of the race with chassis damage. The Ferrari, though, started to have dramas. In the end, it would be 2 punctures and an ECU that did for it. The number 69 Lamborghini with a pit lane fire while being refueled. Mitch Gilbert, the driver, scrambling out. He was okay. The car was okay. It's running still. It's in 19th place. Good battle between Warren Luff's Porsche and the Guy Smith Bentley as they came powering past the pits. They've been nose to tail for many laps, but eventually the Bentley prevailed. Round the outside went Guy Smith, and the Australian Warren Luff, the V8 Supercar Enduro Cup winner this year, fell behind him. Jimmy Bruni then was on a mission to make up for lost time after the clash with the Lotus. He managed to find a way past the McLaren of Parent going down towards turn 1. But then the puncture came, and so the car slowly made its way back to the pits, but not slowly enough to prevent rubber flailing off the tyre. It was a long in-lap, time was lost, and time was lost in the Bentley pit stop as well. The car had come in with the wheels on lock, therefore they had to be kicked straight before the tyre could be removed and a new wheel put on. Battle on track as Alvaro Parent sorted out the number 17 Audi diving up towards turn 4. And the Audi lost another spot as well as 35 Mercedes wriggled its way through. The Japanese car, or the Japanese drivers in the Mercedes, working their way up the order back into contention. Pit stops at Phoenix, balletically orchestrated as number 14 Toyota started to lose bodywork. The car with a small fuel tank down towards the bottom end of the field, but persevering and aiming for a finish as Lawrence Vantour carved his way up past the McLaren, put 1 spot on the FFF racing car, and then set off in pursuit of the race leaders. After stopping on the track with an ECU failure, that was changed, rear suspension was changed, but to no avail for number 1 Ferrari. Another puncture did too much rear damage. And how about this for close racing? 3 abreast, Ferrari, Mercedes, Lamborghini. A snapshot of what GT3 racing and the Sepang 12 hours is all about. But then came the rain at about 4 p.m. and it wasn't long before the race director brought everybody into the pit lane under a red flag situation. And there the cars remained. But it eventually stopped raining, so the water was swept off the road and we were ready to go once again. From a safety car start, everybody would line up in the pit lane and be brought round to the grid. But we still had some with problems because as the cars were released, so Bentley number 9 with Vincent Abril at the wheel developed a problem with the gear shift pressure system. And so that car ended up going back into its pit box. The problem had to be solved, and then it was allowed to be brought back into the race. But more laps lost, big frustration for a team that came here with realistically high hopes of winning. Marcus Winkelhock led away on the restart. Abril eventually did get back into the race. Some great racing on track as Alex Young sorted out Stuart Leonard. The two Audis run by different teams, but with the same purpose. Leonard, racing the car for the first time, did an impressive job. He handed over to Vantor, who was on a mission. Alvaro Perret behind him likewise. But then the rain started to become heavier. New set of wet tyres put on. And the two WRT cars had to try to hunt down number 16, which was still with Winkelhock at the wheel. He double stinted the tyres as well, and that meant that he got a bigger gap. He pulled out a further 24 seconds over the opposition. Number 8 Bentley, with Andy Soucek at the wheel, compromised a little bit in traffic, but then the rain became heavier, and it meant that the safety car was deployed because the drivers were struggling to see the standing water, and there's plenty of it on track at the moment. And this was what really heralded it. Off the road slid number 67 Porsche with Andrew Tang at the wheel, and it was at that moment that the safety car was deployed. It stayed out for a few laps, but it became apparent that the weather conditions were just too bad, and so flashing yellow lights were substituted for red lights, and the red flag shown for the second time in the Sepang 12 hours. And so this is how we stand. It is Nicky Thiem in number 16 Audi, ahead of now Christopher Hasse and Laurens Vantor for the WRT team, Audi 1, 2 and 3. McLaren is fourth. Alvaro Perret brought the car in. These are the drivers that were behind the wheel, but it doesn't have to be this driver that will restart. Fifth, Andy Soucek. Sixth, Sean Thong. In GT Cup, it is the number 23 Lamborghini, now in the hands of Yuan Bo, who leads from Will Bamber's Porsche, and then Bruce Lee's Porsche third, ahead of the Audi of Hank Kicks, with fifth in the class now the 87 Porsche run by the GDL team, and that is Gilbert Ang, and then sixth is Mitch Gilbert with the Lamborghini. And the touring car class is rather more straightforward because Kenny Lee's Toyota has about a 20-lap lead over Brian Lee, and then it is Jim Hunter who is in third spot, that car having lost lots of time early on with a clutch issue when it was stranded out on the circuit and had to be retrieved. And so the race will not restart before 8:45 now, we are told, and you can see why. The rain continues to fall here, and frustration for the teams, frustration for the race officials, because over the previous days when we've had rain, it's kind of emptied the heavens and then moved on. But this has been rather persistent for a good 4.5 hours now, and it's just adding. And you can see the situation there on the approach and the exit of turn 14. You can see where the water comes completely across the track, and that's, I think, the situation at other parts of the circuit, and in the dark it's just very dangerous indeed. There's the Phoenix Racing car that leads, and some of the members of the team relax, others just bored as they lean on the rear wing of the car. But Nicky Thiem brought it in, and it is the leader by, well, the gap is irrelevant because it'll be a nose-to-tail restart, but it was half a minute, but that disappeared when the safety car came out. And it's Moses Phoenix Racing team that operates the car. Winners of the Nürburgring 24 Hours, DTM champions, experienced squad. So Audi first, second, third, McLaren fourth, only the leading four on the lead lap, with Andy Soucek's Bentley in fifth spot, and then Sean Thong in sixth position in his Phoenix run Audi. So local time, it is about 24 minutes to 9, and of course it's getting darker and darker all the time as we head towards midnight, which is when the race, just before midnight, the race will finish. And the race director still has to make a call as to when he can think about restarting the race. But if there's lots of standing water now and it's being added to, then I'm afraid to say that it's going to be a bit more of a delay yet before we can get things back underway. Of course, at the end, there will be the celebrations on the podium, but we're a little way yet off knowing for sure who's going to be there. Maybe the touring car class is a little bit more straightforward, but certainly overall, it's a very different situation. So we're about 20 minutes away, therefore, from the end of the 9th hour. And now we're told it won't restart before 9 o'clock. So another 15 minutes added to the downtime, so we have at least 23 minutes rather now before we can get things back underway. And even that's not a definite restart time, it's more of a pitch inspection time. Vincent Voss there strides over to one of his cars. Part of the WRT operation. There's the other half, the bespectacled former journalist Pierre Dieudonné, great racing driver himself, and Vincent Voss, of course, also a very quick racing driver in his day. His first ever race in cars coming at Alton Park in a Formula Ford race, champion of Alton, July 1992, and he drove for Andy Welch's team in a Van Diemen. But it's as the owner of WRT that he's really made his name. And Pierre Dieudonné, who for many, many years was with Orica, running the team, but himself a very, very successful touring car racer in the late 70s through to early 90s, really, in things like Mazda RX-7s and then Ford Sierras. He was part of the Eggenberger Texaco Sierra RS500 team in the first year of the World Touring Car Championship, for example, 1987, and then stayed with them into the ETCC the year after. But Pierre Dieudonné brings huge amounts of experience to WRT. Vincent Voss, the real flamboyant figurehead, but Pierre Dieudonné, in his quiet, understated way, just gets on with running the team. And as I say, both of them racers both, so that competitive spirit is there. And a very cosmopolitan team as well, drivers from all over, and engineers as well. We heard earlier on in the race from Adam Hardy, the top English race engineer who looks after the Lawrence Vanthoor number 17 car in this race, who was rather looking forward, I think, to a bit of a break in the race. It's a rather different type of pit stop. You don't have to worry too much about any strategy while the cars are just sitting there. Next thing that he had to do was recalculate all his plans for the restart, and he's going to have to do the same again, as are all the teams up and down the pit lane now, because they have an indeterminate amount of racing time left, but they've got to make sure that the minimum time for the lower graded drivers is adhered to, and that means Stuart Leonard in that car. So still some head scratching to be done for the teams, and still some work, whether it's actually on the car or on the data. But just about everybody has got the car in the garage, so more and more people can work on it if that's what's required. And the 24 starters, we have only 2 retirements, and although we've got a few what you might call walking wounded, they are still going, they are still runners. So it's not that they're in the pit lane and just haven't officially retired, they are all still capable of circulating. And ironic that one of the retirements, perhaps the highest profile, one of the 2, is the car that most people are anticipating being hard to beat after qualifying. Somebody said to me this morning, it'll be a good race as long as the number 1 Ferrari doesn't run away into the distance. Well, it has been long since a retirement. 84 laps ago, that car retired into the pits after 2 punctures, new rear suspension, a new ECU, and lots of bodywork damage. So it was not the day, not the result that the team anticipated, far from it. So for Clearwater Racing, big disappointment. And Ferrari hopes were being carried there by the Singer Motorsport car, but that's only in 7th place now. Davide Rizzo at the wheel when he brought it in, but that's been struggling for the last hour or so, really, in the wet with a lack of traction. So Davide Rizzo brought it in, and that car a lap down now, number 15, the Marchi Lee Sean Fong, or Wei Fun Fong, to give him his correct title. He's one of a number of drivers from this part of the world that's anglicised their name, but Wei Fung Thong, he was christened, but Sean Fong he is now. And Alex Young, the other driver in the 6th place car, the Phoenix Run Audi Hong Kong entry. Marchi Lee, a hugely experienced driver as well, and that's the scene in the paddock. It's no wonder you've got all the lovely horticulture, because it gets lots of rain, but it is a very wet paddock, I'm afraid to say, and we'll try and ferret out a few more drivers. So we've got at least 20 minutes before we can get things even thought about being back underway. The race director has told the teams that the race will not restart before 2100 hours, and we're about 16 minutes away from that, and many of the drivers, I think, now have decided it's dinner time, and so they're not in the garages. And the teams have different catering areas. Some have hospitality lounges, and others have their own areas out the back of the paddock. So we've sent Jack off to go and try and tear people away from their dinner. Come talk to us. So Nicky Thiem's Audi, the race leading car, still huge frustration having lost time before the first red flag with damage to 51 Porsche. Warren Luff has got back behind the wheel of that car, but it was one that there were high hopes for, I think, certainly in the Pro-Am element of the race. But that's now fizzled away a little bit. And the safety car's going back out, the Bentley, to go and explore the circuit and just see. Again, looking out of the window, it actually looks like it stopped raining. I'm probably wrong in this because I normally am, but it looks better. Race will restart at 2100 hours. Cars to line up in pit lane order. Right. So we're nearly in business. We've got, he says with glee, about 17 minutes before we can get things back underway, but we're not far off then having the race restarted. So we're 15 minutes away from the end of the next hour. Out blasts the safety car. Turns its way out of turn 1, and that will head round to the grid, ready to receive the cars. So any driver that thought dinner was a good idea is going to get indigestion now, because they need to fold it down and get back towards the car. And that's going to give us, effectively, a 3-hour race, give or take. So we've got what you might call a round of the Blancpain Endurance Series, because they're normally 3 hours. That's the basic minimum distance for a Blancpain round. It'll be 3 hours to go. So there is the safety car, which will make its way round to the grid. There'll be a safety car restart, of course, but those laps will count within the duration. So thanks for your patience. We won't be far off getting things back underway here at Sepang. The Sepang 12 hours of 2015 with a second interruption for a red flag. Is that the last we've seen of the rain? Can things dry out? Hopefully they will, not only because we want to get the race done now without further interruption, but also what will be fascinating is to see the crossover point between when the road finally becomes dry enough and we have to then factor in tyre choice as well. So the safety car is heading to the grid and the race is going to restart. The order is being given, so it will be, I'll give you the drivers that brought the cars in. They may or may not be the drivers that take them out. There is the situation in one of the teams, that's Audi, I think. The K3, yes, Marcus Winkelhock is there, Lawrence Vantour is there. Right, well, Lawrence, you need it in your car, or somebody is, because he brought it in. So Nicky Team ahead of Christopher Hasser. Christopher Mies is there, and gorging on food is Lawrence Vantour. Vincent Voss says, right, we're going to go racing soon. So Team Hasser, Vantour, Perrin, Suchek, Thong, the top 6. Those are the drivers that brought the cars in under the red flag. Davide Rizzo, Hon Chun Chen, Dominic Ang, Stephen Kane to round out the top 10. Guan Bo, Will Bamber, Bruce Lee, Hank Kicks, Warren Luff, and then Gilbert Ang in 16th place. 17th is Kenny Lee, Georges Caban is 18th, Mitch Gilbert is 19th, John Martin 20th, Brian Lee 21st, and Jim Hunter is 22nd. Those are the cars, those are the drivers. And let's see if we can gate crash Audi's hospitality. Jack has managed to blag his way in, probably for dinner, and a few interviews as well.
These are all our top teams we've got here. This is the man who's in the lead car, Marcus Winkelhock. That's safety cars and red flags, bad news for you, isn't it?
Yeah, we lost, I think, more than 30 seconds. Why are you all laughing?
He's laughing because he's second now.
No, yeah, we're still in the lead, and I think we have good driver lineup, so we keep on pushing until the end of the race. Absolutely.
Who's the weak link in his driver lineup?
Him, of course.
How hard was it to double stint both driving and the tyres?
To be honest, it was quite tough. I expected, during the rain it became a little bit more cold, so I expected actually to be quite easy. But it was really tough at the end. When I got out of the car, it was still very hot in the car and was quite challenging.
So Chris, your car is now second and going to be right behind him. Do you think you can beat him and win the race?
Well, that's the target. We'll see. It's still 3 hours to go. Anyway, anything can happen.
And Lawrence here is having a real racing driver food, bread and butter. That's what Vincent Voss is pleased he's eating. And how's it going for you guys? Third place, you happy with that?
Yeah, I think we can be happy. We still have 3 hours to go, and then actually we start from zero again. We will all start behind each other. Oh, let's see. It's going to be exciting, that's for sure. 3 Audis, so we have to be a bit careful with each other, but it will be a challenge.
Cool. Well, best of luck, guys. We're starting again in 10 minutes, so get ready, won't you? Back to you, Adders.
Don't forget food, Jack. Don't leave empty-handed. So it's all very relaxed as Vincent Voss wanders over to join in the fun as well. But they are looking pretty relaxed, the drivers. So we know there's going to be a driver change in 17 on account of what we've just heard from the guy that isn't in the car, or one of the two that's not in the car, but Laurens Vanthoor brought it in. But food is very important. So there the field starts to line up, and we will restart at 9 o'clock. So we've got about 12 minutes. So it gives time to get everybody in the order. Now, it's not going to be the classification order, in fairness. It is going to be the order that they cross the last timing loop. So you will get cars out of sequence here. You will get people that are a lap down, because it was, unlike the first restart, they are being restarted in timing loop order. In other words, if you had 2 back markers between you and the car ahead, then you've still got 2 back markers between you and the car ahead. And that's going to be the format of the restart order, different from how we were the first time around. Either way, the gaps disappear, but because you all start close together. But what it does mean is that you might find yourself this time around with some traffic to get through, which will have an effect on the gap when we go live, when we get the green flag. And so this is how the race positions are. This is the classification, but it's not necessarily the restart order. The order is going to be team ahead of Hasse, ahead of Vanthoor, but then 27, which is 9th, will be 4th in the queue. Dominic Ang's Ferrari. And then it's going to be Andy Soucek. So the one that loses out actually here is Alvaro Perrin, because that car is 4th in the classification, but will start 13th, in fact, in the queue with all the back markers to find a way past. So this time it's going to be a slightly different restart order. The benefit of having a safety car first was there was an order, and then everybody just came in that line after the red flag, whereas the first time we went straight to a red flag from live conditions, so it's rather harder to police that. So this is how the format's going to be this time. It will be timing loop order, not classification. And there is number 16, Nicky Thiem, ready to go. And Jack's down at the pits. Jack, what news? See if you can learn more from the pit lane, Jack.
I'm right down at the end of the pit lane by Nicky Thiem's car. And as you say, it is Nicky Thiem who's going to be starting in that 16 car. Then behind him, it's Christopher Hasse at the wheel of the 150 car, which is going to be tucked in right behind. And as you say, although it's not exactly the same order, they are all together. There is the 17 car, that's Stefan Ortelli, who's pulling the way. And those are our top 3 Audis fighting it out for the remaining 4 hours or so.
Okay, so we're going to go back racing. Out they go. Thank you, Jack. Wonderful noise as they all go blasting down the pit lane. And I mentioned early on, one of the beauties of GT racing is the fact that you have these not only different shapes of car, but different sounds that they all make as well. And there are many of them evinced as they head down the pit road, ready to get round onto the grid. So we are, of course, having this restart all within the 12 hours. The clock carries on ticking. Stop, keeps on ticking. And so we're going to have effectively a 3-hour race when everybody is back out on track and ready to go. It'll be 3 hours before the very end. And you know how much drama you can get in 3 hours of Blancpain races if you follow international GT racing. And we should be good to go. And of course, it's going to be the 3 leading cars all together. So it's going to be a bit harder to see the headlights rather than just the cars in the battle. They have to work out which set of lights is which. Apologies also that the number of cameras that we have to show you the action isn't as numerous as earlier. One camera was directly struck by lightning. We had that huge downpour of lightning earlier on. And that in turn was cabled up to a number of other cameras that were equally affected. So the weather gods, I'm afraid, have had a real part to play in the race and also in the coverage. But fair play to our camera crew that have stayed out there and braved the elements and working a long old shift to bring us pictures and also getting cameras back up and running wherever possible. So we're doing our best to try and get back up to the full coverage we had earlier on. But bear with us, these weather conditions are a challenge for everybody in every respect. So the field brought round to the grid, and you can see the proper pro drivers just from the way they attack an outlap like this. It's like an installation lap in a sense round to the grid, but straight away they're pushing to see where the grip levels are and where the standing water is. And of course come round to the grid behind the safety car, and we'll be ready to go at 2100 hours. So we are about just under 8 minutes away from that now. Up they come towards the grid. So they'll stop behind the safety car in the order, as we say, that was the order in which they came into the pit lane, the timing loop order, not the classification order. So there's the safety car, and everybody now will stop in formation behind it, and that will give us just under 3 hours. The race started, I think I'm right in saying, about a minute and a bit before midday, so to finish a minute and a bit before midnight, but we're looking at 3 hours to go. So everybody gets the message. You don't go blasting through, you stop. And so, as I say, Alvaro Parent is the one that lost out really in all of this. The McLaren now mired in traffic, so Parent's going to be well worth watching over the first few laps. 74% of the race is done. And yet, oh hello, one or two there getting a bit towy on the way up towards the grid. Hopefully everybody realises that you're not meant to go racing yet. They do, they stop. So 22 of our 24 starters still ready to go, still circulating. And the restart is about, what, 6 minutes or so away. So the field completes the installation lap as it is, effectively. Go round onto the grid. And very shortly, the remainder of this countdown will be completed, and then we're going to be good to go. The Phoenix team, for the moment, can just sit and watch. Work done. And we are almost ready, as I say, to go back racing again from Sepang in this 12-hour race. So 5-minute board shown. And Nicky Team versus Christopher Hasse versus Stefan Ortelli. It will be 1 lap behind the safety car. The rain is still falling. And the race director may feel that it's more than just 1 lap that is needed, but he will make that decision during the course of the lap. First of all, he wants to get them all away. Still the grid is forming. Takes a long time to get everybody out and then around the lap itself, which is 5.5 kilometres. So it's a long old lap. And now everybody starts to form up into position. But still the rain falls, so I've got a feeling it's actually increased a little bit in its intensity just since the race director, Alain Adam, made the call to go racing once again. But hey, there you can see, perhaps exaggerated a bit by the lights, just what it's like on the pit straight. But we're ready to run. That's turn 14, the hairpin at the end of the lap, and the standing water's there still. But we'll see from now the drivers, when they are released, what comments we get back. It might be even that 1 or 2 drivers have been communicating with the team, and thence to race control on that lap round to the grid just now. So a time will be given by the officials for the start of the stint. There's the 6:02 Subaru, Grant Johnson back at the wheel of it. The reason that the teams need a time is because they need to know when their 65 minutes is up to bring in a driver and either double stint, but you have to come into the pit lane. You can't keep him out there for any longer than that. 65 minutes is the longest you can be out, but if you want to keep the guy behind the wheel, that's fine, because once he's been in the pits, that counts as a stint and then it resets, but they need to know what that time is. And the team's asking for that start time. Also, we have Phoenix Racing asking how many safety car laps will we do, and the Singer Motorsport team saying that we've got some slow cars in front of number 11 Ferrari. In other words, back markers, can we overtake them? There has not yet been a reply to that. So when we do get a response to things like that, I'll pass it on. But the team's communicating with race control and asking the questions. But it'll be a safety car restart. The answer should therefore be no. You have to hold formation. and get past the lap traffic in the normal way. So as yet there's no answer to how many safety car laps we will do, but as soon as an answer comes to that, then we'll pass it on. So we're a couple of minutes or so away from getting things back underway. There is Stefan Rattel, who has found somewhere dry to watch, and it's at the WRT garage. So he's not been offered a chair, but at least he's been offered some shelter. Whereas the race officials in the pit lane, of course, have had to go and get the cars in order, and still the rain falls. I think it's getting heavier, don't you? That shot, where you can see it in front of the floodlights, does suggest that it's getting heavier once more, but the officials are about a minute and a half away from getting the race underway. In 24 seconds, we'll be at the end of our 9th hour. And number 16 has led, and I know that we were stopped for the best part of 2 of them early on, and then the most recent hour we've been stopped for, but it has led ever since the end of hour 2, number 16. The first hour being led by car number 11, Ferrari. So you look at it in pure numbers and you think 16 has dominated the race, but it may not lead for much longer. We've got the 1 minute board now, and we are 2 hours and 59 minutes of the race to go. As we are nearly at 9 o'clock, you can see the time of day. Start engines, that board says. And Pierre Giordone looks on from the WRT garage. But still the rain bounces off the ground, still the rain falls. And shortly things will be back underway for, as I say, just under 3 hours of the race. So the cars all lined up then behind the safety car. The Bentley will lead them away, and when it does, then so the field will be led by number 16, Nicky Thiem. But this has the makings, these next few laps, of being absolutely fantastic, because it could really shake up the whole format of the race, couldn't it, depending on who does what to which and to whom, in limited visibility with limited grip. So the safety car blasts away, and now we get the green flag, so the race resumes. So we are back in business. As I say, we don't have a race stop in these situations, it's a race suspension, and now this is the race getting back underway. So we're on lap 123 as the cars cross the timing line, and everybody now cycles through. How wet is it, Jack? I know you've just come back in for a dry. Audi looked nice.
It was pleasant, actually.
Yes.
I'd already eaten, to be fair, so I didn't eat any of their lovely food. So that's a bit of a shame. But no, it is pretty wet. And
yeah.
Well,
getting
actually,
heavier, getting better.
Well, it had got better, and when me and Brownie were at the end of the pit lane watching the cars head out onto the track, it was pretty much not raining, really. But now I've come in and looked at the telly, and it looks pretty wet out there still.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what transpires. The Sepang round of the Blancpain Endurance Series begins now.
Exactly right, yes, and counting. So we've got 2 hours and 57 minutes to go, and the race is on, even though it's behind the safety car. Now, what we don't know is whether that's going to peel in at the end of this lap necessarily. It might be that they give them another lap or two just to feel the conditions. It might be that we go racing this time. We'll wait and see, but that's the scene in the pit lane as the rain continues to fall. Field turning its way out of turns 7 and 8. There does seem to be a huge amount more spray than I was anticipating, and this kind of looks almost as bad as it was a little while ago. So yes, the race director wants to get things moving again if possible, but he's not going to take any chances. So the Audi 1-2-3 fight. Stefan Ortelli you put into number 17, didn't you? While Lawrence Vantor finishes his bread and butter.
Yes. He said in a 12-hour race, I can't be bothered to eat healthily the whole time. Fair enough. But I mean, there aren't many scenarios where you'd see the top three, the top 3 cars in the race doing battle over the race win, all sitting having a meal together. I mean,
it's
I
like
know
the 1950s, isn't it? Almost.
Exactly.
It's got that gentlemanly feel again. Yes.
I know they're all from Audi, but you know,
Well, they would've won.
Rosberg and Hamilton are from Mercedes. You know, it doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah, no, they throw caps at each other. They don't sit down and have dinner, do they?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I like the concept, though. It's a long race, so I'm not eating healthily. He'd get on well with Jerry Marshall. Jerry would be proud of him for that. So as the field turns its way, on that 163, we have only got just under 3 hours to go. So
Three-quarters race distance.
yeah, we're almost done. 75% there. And only 2 retirements. I still find that fascinating, despite everything that's been thrown at us. I know you could argue that if the grid were busier, there'd be more chance of people having incidents and getting involved in contact. But, you know, yes, people have had problems, but they've been able to fix them. And mechanically speaking, we're still there with the majority of the field still running, only 2 retirements. Now, is the safety car going to peel in?
Lights are still on.
Yeah, so we're not being told it'll come in. So at least 1 more lap is going to be done behind the safety car. So it makes sense, doesn't it? You give them a lap or 2 to feel an increasing speed as well. This is something race directors will do, is get them going quicker and quicker and quicker and let them feel the conditions. But rather them than me, I would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that, is it the Peloton? What's the one with the little weird electric bike on the cycling, and they go round on the inside and it gets quicker and quicker and quicker, and then it releases them.
Yes, I can't think of the word, but I know what you mean. Yes.
But it's like that, except it's tipping it down with rain.
And these are cars.
And these are cars.
And it's outdoors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But apart from all
that,
those differences...
Yeah, it's just the same, I think, yeah. People are being told they can overtake number 14 because Brian Lee's Toyota is the one with the small engine and it's not the quickest of cars, but very generously he's coming to the pit lane to get out of their way anyway, so that's quite good. There is the tropical weather. So, as it continues to rain, we're on that 164, and Brian Lee brings the Toyota into the pit lane. And no news yet as to when the safety car may peel in, but the lights are still on, and of course it's when they go out that's the indication that everybody's going to head for the pit lane at the end of that lap.
So how long was this stoppage? I didn't really keep track of it, I don't think, but we lost 2 hours earlier on.
It was just over an hour, I think.
Just over an hour,
yeah,
okay.
because we had the red flag just before the 8-hour bulletin came,
okay.
and the 9th hour was completed about a minute and a half before 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So call that another hour.
Okay, so we've had 3 hours of running behind the safety car or red flag, which in 12, if that's all we get in 12 hours, that's not too bad. When you compare it to Spa a couple of years ago, it's probably similar for different reasons, admittedly.
Yeah, quite. Yes. So the safety car stays out. Race order. It's Audi first, second, third. Noah's Ark fourth in these conditions. But the Audis at the moment have the upper hand. Interesting what people are telling you from the pit lane about just can't match the pace of the Audis. But you could feel Malcolm Wilson's disappointment. I mean, genuinely. I was talking to some Bentley people 10 days or so ago, and they were all really up for this event. They really felt that they could come here and get a 1-2 even. You know, there was real, not arrogance, but genuine, justifiable confidence in this.
Well, the Bentleys tend to go well on the bigger Grand Prix style circuits. That's why they tend to, you know, we've seen them win at Paul Ricard, we've seen them win at Silverstone. They were running strongly at Monza at times. And it's when in the sprint series we go to a silly little place like Nogaro, you know, where it's tight and it's twisty, or we go to Navarra, then, you know, then there they struggle. So on a circuit like this, you think this would be, you know, right up the Bentley street, but it really hasn't worked out for them this weekend at all. Whether that's just the new tyres that they've got to get used to, but WRT have got used to theirs. The thing I didn't quite follow, I was sure, how was Alvaro Parent now on the lead lap? I thought he'd stayed out when the safety car came out in that McLaren, but he said, no, I didn't. So I don't quite figure out how he's got all the laps back.
You're both right, because he did pit, but not at the end of the first lap when the safety car came out, because all the Audis came in as the safety car was deployed. Parent did 1 lap, but because they had already pitted, and he was far back anyway, so he didn't lose the time relative to them, because by the time the Audis were collected, the safety car was there, so it was a slow lap. He was able to pit and join the queue.
On the same lap, right.
Yeah, that's why he's out of sequence, if you like, because there's quite a lot of traffic between him and the top 3. But because he pitted after the leaders under safety car conditions anyway, he didn't lose as much time as he might have done.
Yeah, got it. Thank you very much, Steve.
So he did pit, but he didn't pit initially, but he did pit And so you're both right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But what he has now left himself with is a bit of work to do to get himself up through the traffic. Because, as I say, we're doing this in timing loop order because it's easier to do it from the actual physical safety car this time. And therefore he's got to get through the traffic.
Absolutely, and that's going to be a tough ask. That's always the amazing thing in these cars, especially in Blancpain Endurance, for example, when you have multi-class racing, but in just one class, when the difference is the Pro or the Pro-Am, you can end up with all these back markers that actually you're no quicker than. It's not like in World Endurance where an LMP1 car's got to get past a GT car to make up back marker traffic. That's easy. This, you've got to get past cars that are pretty much exactly the same pace as you. And that's what frustrated the likes of Laurens Vanthoor in Spa when he crashed out earlier this year. It was because he was trying to get past, I can't remember who it was now, it might have been
Jan Bowen?
Yeah, Jan Bowen, that was it, in the Black Falcon. And he was just like, I'm slightly quicker. And this guy's 4 laps down, but what can you do?
But how many times have we, in Endurance Series races particularly, talked about somebody carving into the gap, 20 seconds back, 10 seconds back, 5 seconds back, nose to tail, and then they sit there for 20 laps. The BOP is such that, yes, the cars are evenly matched, but then it becomes hard to find a way round and hard to overtake. And different cars will have different strengths. Some are good, like the Porsches, normally aspirated cars, they're good through corners, and others with the turbos will be good in the straight line. The Bentley's good, the Mercedes rather, is good out of slow corners onto long straights with all that grunt. But that's what makes GT3 such a success, really.
Absolutely. So with Bruce Lee there rejoining the field, that means every car that's running is running. So we've got all 22 of the 24 that started still going after just over 9 hours of racing. So some good stuff. Very good reliability from these guys. Okay, a lot of them have run into troubles, but they've managed to keep it out there on the island at the moment. Although, well, a lot of them would like to be on an island, I think, at the moment. So,
it's 9 hours of racing or 9 hours of the race.
Yeah.
There's a subtle difference.
Yeah, that's
there?
very true.
But I know what you mean. But the safety car lights are still on, and we're not hearing anything on the message line about whether it's going to come in soon or not. You can understand why they're doing this, but I've got to say, I would still think it's pretty grim out there.
True, but there's a school of thought, isn't there, that says it's better to have the cars circulating, trying to clear some of the water away from the racing line, than just sitting in the pits, twiddling the thumbs, getting the circuit wetter and wetter. But at the moment, the rain does seem pretty heavy. Max Bucco in 5th place in that Bentley, so that's satisfying for them. Still haven't heard any more on Sean Thong's missing lap, which is...
no, interesting that, isn't it?
Yeah, because they were sort of convinced it was going to happen. In the interview, Sean was a little reserved, saying, oh, we should get it back. When I spoke to him before we started rolling, he was like, yeah, no, we're going to get it back there. Marchie's told them what happened, so they said okay, and so we're going to get the lap back. So
interesting.
They were absolutely convinced that they were going to get that lap returned to them.
Not yet. The teams are discussing with race control. Phoenix are saying, how many safety car laps will we do? WRT answers, we suggest that you keep the safety car out for a while. It's horrendous out there. Phoenix then say, drivers report same conditions as at last red flag. That was 6 minutes ago, that communication. FFF Racing saying, same here, rain intensifies. Another team is saying there's more water on the track than before. One of the Toyota teams saying it's worse than before. AMAC, another team, saying we're fine to go racing, conditions are fine to race in. So a complete difference in 5 minutes. Posts 6 minutes ago saying it's worse than before, and 1 minute ago a team saying absolutely fine, let's crack on.
Yeah, well, it was amazing how quickly the conditions changed earlier when we went from absolute, I mean, you were down there, but it looked from here like it was that was proper thunderstorm, tropical rain, to a bit of drizzle, and it was dry enough to get cracking. So the conditions can change very quickly, but there you can see how difficult the visibility is. It's the spray coming off the cars that's the trickiest part, I suppose.
Phoenix saying both cars still report extremely bad conditions. SC in is still too high to risk because of standing water. And that is a team that, okay, wants to win, and its car is in the lead, or one of its cars is in the lead, but these are experienced teams with experienced pro drivers, aren't they? They're not going to give you any pony here.
And we got 2 hours 46 to go. If this were the last 10 minutes, you know, you could imagine them going, no, it's too dangerous. We've got to finish the race under safety car. But I'm sure, despite the fact that the Phoenix would love to win, they're under no illusions that they're not going to be able to stop this race for the next 2 3/4 hours if the conditions get better. But there they are, coming through 5 and 6, heading towards the double right-hander at 7 and 8. Bentley in there of Maxi Book up in front of the 23 Lamborghini, which is still leading the GTC class at the moment, isn't it? Yes. They're 4 laps clear of Will Bamber, who's second in that NZ Motorsports squad. Great to see that team, actually. And like I was talking to Will, that the drivers are helping at the pit stops and they're, you know, refilling the fuel bowsers and that kind of thing. It's fantastic.
He's a good character, isn't he, as well?
Yeah.
Came across really well. So that car, class winner last year, second in class now, but he's got to make up, or Ito's got to make up 4 laps. And as Peter Cox was saying in the first interruption, you don't really know how much racing time you're going to have left, because you just don't know, A, when you're going to restart, and B, what the weather gods may have in store. So we had a lot of heavy rain last night, but from memory, it didn't last as long as this has. It came later and didn't rain for quite so long.
I'm trying to remember it. I don't really remember the rain last night, but I don't remember what I had for lunch.
I seem to remember it rained about 5:30, 6 o'clock on the way out of the circuit.
Oh yes, yeah.
And it was very heavy.
Yeah.
But by 8:30, 9 o'clock time, it was not as bad. You know, it wasn't as long a period as this has been. This has been very persistent.
Yeah,
as well as
absolutely.
being heavy. Yeah.
Well, essentially non-stop since 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So with varying degrees of intensity. So if you tuned in to see Malaysian storms at their best, then you've picked a good day. You tuned in to see great endurance GT racing, you've also picked a good day. And if you wanted both, then you are absolutely in luck, my friend, because it has been a fantastic day for both of those things.
Malaysian Storms is one of the best new bands around, I think. Their latest album is an absolute stormer, I tell you. Download it now for free. So
2 hours and 43 minutes to go as the countdown continues. There's the I think that's 27, isn't it?
You're glad you started that section.
Exactly. I thought it was going to be 11 coming through, and I was just about to say Singer, and then I spotted it looked a bit darker than that. So then as a Nexus team who've had a good race, to be honest. They've been impressive at times. Okay, they're 2 laps down from the Pierre Guidi Yoshimoto battle, and 5 laps down from the race lead, but you know, considering the sort of opposition they're up against, I think they've done a good job.
Was there any more news from the Singer team about this mysterious gripless car they're coping with?
No, they genuinely, well, they seemed to me to say that they genuinely didn't understand it, whether that's the truth or not, whether they know exactly what the problem is but don't want to admit to it. I don't know, but to me, if there's damage to the car, you say there's damage to the car, and there's no sort of shame in that. So I don't really know what they could be hiding by, you know, not divulging what the issue is. So it's an interesting one. There's the 87 Porsche just coming through, and it's Gilbert Ang at the wheel of that one at the moment, running down in 16th position. Reasonable in class, 5th in class at the moment for them. Still, we're behind the safety car here at the Sepang 12 hours. You can see the order down at the bottom. Pierre Guidi, interesting to see what his lap times are like when the running gets going again, because of course under that red flag they'll have had a lot of opportunity to change the car, whereas before, as the Bentley crew are getting some rest, that's what David Addison's doing at the moment. And as I hold the ship steady, and yeah, we could see that the Singer Motorsport Ferrari team have made some changes during that big red flag period that have helped them, but we'll have to wait and see. Wanted to, about 8:25, I went up to Pierre Guidi and said, can we have a little chat? And he said, no, I've got to get in the car, I was a bit confused. Why? I was, no, I'm going to get in the car. And he got in the car, and everyone was getting in the car and getting a bit busy. And I think they must have misread the timing screens because it said race will not restart before 8:30. And they've obviously read it and seen, oh, the race will restart at 8:30. So they're all stressed. And I was thinking, oh, okay. I mean, you've literally got 35 minutes to speak to me. I only want 2 minutes, but yeah. And presumably they figured out what happened. And
there's nothing like being king, is there?
no, exactly. I mean, fair play to them. They just wanted to get back out, but yeah, a little premature. So lights still on the safety car. 2 hours, 41 minutes to go, and the rain's pretty heavy, isn't it? As they swing through the left-hander.
It was in 2013's Blancpain season where the first 2 races both began in the wet, Monza and Silverstone. We had about half an hour plus of safety car. The first stint in both of them. So to remember, Monza was very, very wet.
Monza was a good 45 minutes.
Yeah, that was a long old slog, that. And then Silverstone was a pretty soggy place. And then, of course, the 4th round was Spa. So, you know, it was just seamless.
Absolutely. I think that was 2012. Because I didn't do it. So it must have been 2000.
It was the second year of the championship. So, yeah, 2012, yeah, I think it was. John Wickham at Bentley on the headset, talking to the drivers. Another hugely experienced figure in pit lanes up and down the world.
And a laugh though.
Yeah.
I guess what can you do at this point? I guess you're calculating how much fuel you're using and that sort of thing, but in general, you've just got to sit and wait for the racing to start again.
Yeah, they checked in online for the flight home, so that's one priority done.
Have you done that? Did you?
Yes, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding me. Yes, yeah. Jack's my carer, you have to understand.
I just brought you dinner, so.
Exactly, yes. And I've got to make it last for 2 hours and 39 minutes. So all of this, as we keep making the point, all constitutes within the 12 hours. But the frustration for the drivers is that they can't do any overtaking. And what they can do is find out where all these puddles are. And I'm going to say, it looks like it's filling up.
We're in the situation now where it's the end of the run for some of the drivers, potentially. Because with 2 hours 40 to go, as you see the helmets of, well, you'll see the empty helmet here of Guy Smith, because that suggests he's in the car at the moment. And he is running in 10th place at the moment. Stephen Kane's helmet, and you can see the sort of scoops on the top of the lid, especially there on Vincent Abril's up at the top of the middle. That's what forces cool air down on the top of the driver's head to try and keep them a little bit cool in these conditions. But if you're, you know, Nicky Thiem, for example, this safety car period goes on for another half hour, you're not going to get that much more running in potentially, and especially drivers with 4 drivers. Okay, especially cars with 4 drivers, some of them are going to be done, and it's you know, it's time to go home. So
yeah, and again, this is something that the engineers have got to try and factor in, because they want their fastest driver at exactly the right time, don't they? So back to the computers, back to the laptops.
And WRT, I think it was WRT we were saying earlier, I think it was the engineer you spoke to, who said the last 3 hours is when we've got to go for it. And so this is the situation now where actually, with 2.5 hours left, the Thiem versus Haas versus Ortelli is actually pretty important. If you can get a break out here, if Haas can take the lead away and hold it for a couple of hours, you've won the race. Whereas with 10 hours to go, it's still rather up in the air.
Well, there is 23. That's the GTC leading car. Yuan Bo at the wheel of it, the Lamborghini. It's one of the cars that's come from the local Asian Super Trofeo series. And Yuan Bo, former racer in the Sirocco Cup in China. He has been a regular in this race over the years. He's raced in Asian Le Mans, he's raced in the Chinese Clio Cup, and has also been a front runner in the Chinese Audi R8 and Asian Lamborghini Super Trofeo series. So he knows the car and he knows the circuit as well. So standing him in good stead in the class, that. Over the timing line they pour once again. So Nicky Thiem, Christopher Hasse, Stefan Ortelli, and then it will be Alvaro Parent in 4th, but as we're making the point, he's a long way back in the queue.
Good to see Cup cars that aren't just the Porsche as well, because predominantly a GTC class is filled with Porsche Cup cars. But good to see a Lamborghini, a couple of Lamborghinis in there, the Be Quick Racing Audi. Makes it a little bit more variety in there.
It's one of the nice things about a race like this, isn't it? That it's not just about GT3 cars. You know, the class structure is such that it does bring in all sorts of, not weird shapes and sizes, but different things, like the Toyotas. You know, it's a shame that we lost the Lotus early on, because although it wasn't the quickest car out there, it was a different shape, different brand on the grid, and just nice to have some variety.
Yeah, absolutely. Cars wind their way up towards, I think that was turn 4, I guess. It's a right-hander, and they're all swooping down from the hill there. So I think it's turn 4. So we've got 2 hours and 35 minutes to go. Still, conditions out there. I haven't heard any more on what the situation is. Still see the rain coming down pretty heavily. But we've got 4 Audis up at the front, and Audi really do seem to have cracked the GT3 formula, which is impressive considering you shouldn't really be able to crack it almost with the balance of performance. They make the cars as equal as possible, but nevertheless, whether it's the car or whether it's the teams running the cars or the drivers they've got in the cars, but something about Audi always manages to bring them towards the forefront of the action. Top 3 all Audis at the moment from 2 different teams, Phoenix Audi and WRT Belgian Audi Club. 4th place is the McLaren 650S, which appears to be a little more reliable than the MP412C that preceded it. The MP412C had fantastic pace, but would break down literally most of the time. Maximilian Buch in 5th place in that Bentley, but we heard from Malcolm Wilson earlier how disappointed he is with the Bentley performance this weekend, but we know that is a quick car, and as I alluded to with Maxi Buch, every single race he'd say, oh, we're not as good as the Audi, then he'd end up winning. So that was impressive stuff from he and Vincent Abril, who went on to win the Sprint Series title. And as I said earlier, I think he's the only man to win Blancpain Sprint and Blancpain Endurance. Stefan Ortelli won the FIA GT Series, which was essentially Blancpain Sprint, but it wasn't called that, so he didn't win that. End up being a bit pedantic now. So through we go again to start the 169th lap. No, to complete the 169th lap, my apologies, and start the 170th. With Nicky Tim continuing to lead for Phoenix. It's 25 past 9 local time now. So we've been behind the safety car for 15 minutes or so.
25.
25.
Started at 9 o'clock.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah. So it's now 9:25. So yeah.
Maths with adders.
The next Johnny Ball.
I don't think that fastest lap's going to get beaten, is it?
That is a very good point. Yes.
Maria Bruni on lap 2.
And we've got a pit visitor. The
Oh.
Subaru has come into the pit lane. It's for variety. And Grant Johnson is the man behind the wheel of it. Grunter. When he used to race in V8 Ute, everybody in V8 Ute racing in Australia had to have a nickname.
Oh, really?
So he became Grunter, and there was Thruster and all sorts of other randomness, including Grant Denyer, Channel 7 presenter, who was the son of the guy that had the championship rights. And he was sponsored by VIP Pet Foods, so he became known as Mad Dog, and did it the whole marketing thing to perfection, because they used to have the driver autograph session. And Grant Denyer wasn't that tall, he was only about 5 foot in his stocking feet. So for the autograph session, they put him in a kennel, and he went. He did it absolutely properly. But Grant Johnson, former Utes champion, and he was Grunter. It was the point of this bit of padding.
Yes.
But that Subaru has now headed down the pit lane. But it would be nice. I know Stefan Rattel said it to you earlier on in the race. It'd be nice to have more of the Australian teams, because GT racing in Australia is absolutely soaring at the moment. So if we can attract a few more of those over for next year's race, that would be absolutely fantastic. But at the moment, it's the European teams, Phoenix and WRT, that fill the top 3 places in this, the 2015 Sepang 12 Hours.
2.5 hours to go here in Sepang. And there you can see us through the spectacular structure. This is my first visit here, actually, and it is quite as spectacular as it looks on TV. It's a really great place to come. Plenty of greenery around, which is nice. You're not in the middle of some, industrial estate where a lot of the new tracks seemingly tend to be built. And yeah, it's really nice coming here, and the drivers seem to enjoy the circuit a lot as well.
It's also got a feel to it that, yes, it's a new circuit, and the architecture is such that it is one of the modern generation of circuits, but because it's been here a while, it's kind of, can I use the phrase weathered in, but it looks established, even though it's a relatively new circuit, but it's not brand spanking new and looks out of place. It just looks right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, I'd say this is the most successful or best of the modern new built Tilke circuits. I don't imagine in 10 years we're going, oh, now Shanghai's weathered in. It's a lovely place. It's still going to be a soulless. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that old chestnut, but
oh, that lawyer was all excited for a moment. Now you spoiled his fun, Jack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But anyway, I prefer the 24 hours of Spa rather than the 24 hours of anywhere else. So there is the final corner as they go around again. That's 170 laps down, 171 now. They are on. There is the safety car. It looks as though Nicky Tim's trying to get the safety car to go a bit quicker, but to no avail. So we're still under safety car conditions. 9:30 local time, and we're still behind the safety car. Nicky Tim leading the way, but it hasn't always been as horrible as this. At noon, it was lovely. It was 28 degrees, the humidity was up in the high 70s, and it was the #1 Ferrari that took pole position and started on pole position. Jean-Marie Bruni holding the lead for the Clearwater team on the run down in towards turn 1. A great start from Marco Van Dam, moving him up into second place in the Singer Ferrari from 4th on the grid. Stefan Ortelli managed to hold on to 3rd place despite having started in 2nd. Alvaro Parent all over the back of him, but couldn't get through in the early stages. In fact, Parent then came under pressure from the 35 Mercedes behind, but everyone was safely through the first few corners, but not through the first few laps, as we had our first gravel visitor, and that was John Martin, but he was assisted. Also assisted into a spin was Jean-Marie Bruni, the race leader, trying to go around the outside of the Lotus, and another man to find things a little too hot in the pit lane was Mitch Gilbert, the GTC class leader's car, catching fire. He was all right. The car managed to get going again and is still in the race plenty of hours later, 9.5 hours later. Guy Smith was on a charge. He managed to make a move past Warren Luff in the AMAC Motorsport car on the run down towards the first corner, went around the outside, and he was through. Happy days for Guy Smith in the Bentley, but they'd later run into troubles. Jean-Marie Bruni was trying to climb back up the order again, going up the inside of Alvaro Parent, coming down into the first corner. That got him up into second place, but his delight was short-lived. He picked up a puncture on the left rear, the first of 2 punctures that would ultimately see the end of the race for the Clearwater Racing Ferrari team. And Jean-Marie Bruni had to pit. Fortunately, that was on his in-lap when he was meant to make a pit stop anyway, so he didn't lose too much time on that tour. Also a problem in the pits for Bentley, but they managed to get out again and resume the race. Just needed a bit of kicking. Then there was a great battle between Andrew Watson and Stuart Leonard coming up into the right-hander of turn 4. Watson going past Leonard, and Leonard then also came under pressure from the 35 Mercedes-Benz, and it was Hiroki Yoshimoto that made the move on Stuart Leonard. Into the pits came Marcus Winkelhock, almost wiped out a Phoenix mechanic, but got away with it. They would soon find themselves in the lead of the race, while the GTO Racing Toyota was struggling. Then it was a good move from Laurence Van Thor. He got in the car and started to climb up the order, repassing the number 55 FF Racing team by ACM McLaren, now in the hands of Andrea Caldarelli. And that was the race-ending puncture for James Collado. The rear left of the car absolutely wrecked by that puncture, and as a result, the defending champions for 2 years had to retire. Then we had this great battle all over 9th position, and it was the 27 Ferrari of Josh Hunt that came out on top. And actually, it was Dominic Ang at the time, wasn't it, who came out on top. But then, as lovely as it was, the rain came down, and it got horrible, and we got our first full course yellow and subsequent red flag of the race. The marshals came out, brushed the water off, and we were good to go again. after about 2 hours behind the red flag conditions. We finally managed to get going again with the 150 Audi moving into second place, but it was Marcus Finkelhock who was leading the way. There was a problem for the number 9 Bentley of Vincent Abril. He struggled to get going again because of a problem with the shifter system in the Bentley, meaning he couldn't get a gear. But then we got going again behind the safety car. Abril's car was fixed and he rejoined the race, but lost about 4 laps. Then the safety car came in and the racing got back underway, and it was Marcus Finkelhock who began to pull clear. There is Vincent Abril rejoining the race. And at this point, the conditions weren't too bad. Wonderful move by Alex Young around the outside of Stuart Leonard while he was going around the outside of a lapped car at turn 5. And the 17 car was running well and would end up climbing back up the order into 3rd position. But meanwhile, up at the front, Marcus Finkelhock double stinted on both tyres and driving, which he said started to get a bit tough. The 150 car came in and Christopher Mies took over from Christopher Haas, and there was Marcus Finkelhock sitting resolutely at the wheel, not moving anywhere as the Audi headed out for a second stint. Then it all got a little bit tight here as the number 8 Bentley tried to put a lap on the 23 Lamborghini that was leading the class and is still leading the class. And then the rain began to get heavier and heavier and conditions worsened, and as a result we ended up with a second red flag period. That was a little trip into the gravel for the number 67 Motorsport GDL racing car. Little spin round for them and almost collecting one of the Audis as he returned to the pit lane. Then we had our second red flag, which lasted again for about an hour, and then the safety car came out again and we are back under safety car conditions, and that's where you join us now after 9 hours and 34 minutes of the race and about 7 hours of racing. We're behind safety car conditions here in Sepang, but it's still Nicky Tim leading the way in the 16 Phoenix Racing Audi. So this is back to the live rain. And I've been joined here in the commentary box by Andrew Watson, and it's pretty wet out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not ideal for racing at the minute, but I think we've had a pretty good show so far. I mean, our car's running well anyway, in 4th and 1st in class, so we've had a pretty good day at the FFF racing team by ACM. So it's my first time here and first time in Asia actually, so yeah, the weather's a bit different than at home. I think it's snowing back home, so no, it's good. We're doing a good job so far. I mean, I think the safety car is sensible under these conditions. There's rivers on the track and we're getting some aquaplaning. So when I was in the car, it wasn't too bad. We started 6th and I actually had a really good stint. Got up to 4th and could stick with the Audis, so happy with that. We're sitting in 4th now, and again, yeah, 1st in class, but these conditions are too wet to race, so I think they're doing a good job.
Yeah, they're in the GT3 class, but running in the Pro-Am, whereas Team Haas and Ortelli, the top 3, are running in Pro. And Alvaro and the team have done a great job to be on the lead lap now, because you were 2 or 3 laps down, I think, at one point.
I think we lost the lead lap, yeah, at one stage. I don't think we went as far as 2 or 3 laps, but yeah, we've got a little bit lucky with the safety cars and stuff, but I think that's part of the game of endurance racing. So yeah, the team have done a great job. Pit stops have been great, and we made some changes to the car before the wet, and they seem to have really done a good job because both Alvaro and I were really quick in the wet. So credit to the FFF team, they're doing a good job so far. We just can't count our chickens yet. We don't know what's going to happen. There's 2 hours 20 minutes to go. So.
And you've had a lot of experience, or a reasonable amount of experience, with the McLaren racing it in British GT this year. How have you found that, and how did you end up racing the McLaren?
Yeah, well, at the start of the year, McLaren GT approached me to say that they were starting a young driver program, and I was lucky enough to get involved with that. I think I nearly spat my cornflakes out whenever I got a call from managing director Andrew Picotti. But yeah, it's been an amazing year. I mean, last year and the year before that, actually, I raced in the Ginetta GT4 Super Cup, which supports the British touring cars, and that was great. And then this year in British GT, it was okay. It was a little bit hard. We had a silver pairing, and my other McLaren GT young driver, compatriot Ross Wiley, was my teammate. And because we were both silvers, we had to carry some extra weight. So to be honest, it's been tough in British GT this year, but it's all about learning the car and getting up to speed with these guys in GT3, because they really all don't hang around. So, you know, it's been good getting experience back home and coming out here for the first time. I think I've shown that I've been ready and done a good job. So thanks to everyone at McLaren GT for getting me ready.
Yeah, no, it was good to see you and Ross had some strong performances at time, a bit of bad luck at time. Rockingham, you got wiped out by your teammate, and that kind of thing must have been frustrating.
Yeah, it was a really hard season that way, but you know, it's all experience in GT racing, and you know, we didn't get the results, but it's probably learned the most I ever have in a season of racing. So yeah, we'll rebuild for next year. We're not sure what the plans are yet, but everyone at McLaren GT is doing a great job with this new 650S car, and you know, it's the first year, and I think Martin Proctor downstairs, one of the engineers, said that it's already had 23 wins this year, and one of them I can take credit for, Barcelona in the GT Open. So yeah, I mean, it shows you how well the 650S is sorted, you know, straight out of the factory. So credit to all those guys, and credit to the FFF team this weekend. They're doing a really good job.
So did you start your career in single seaters and then move to tin tops, or have you always done tin tops?
No, it's been a bit different for me. Instead of racing karts when I was younger, I raced quads around fields and stuff back home in Northern Ireland. And then thought it'd be different again and go and do some rallying instead of any circuits. So I've only been racing cars about 4 or 5 years now, so it's been a really, really quick jump up, to be honest. So I did 3 years in Ginettas in England and then straight into GT3 this year, but it's all going quite well so far, and it's just the experience that I need to build on now. But that's what's great being in the Young Driver program at McLaren GT. You know, I've had Rob Bell, we've been working closely with him this year in testing, and Alvaro this weekend, and Andrea Caldarelli as well, you know. All great guys, and being able to learn from them is pretty sweet.
So what made you go quad biking and then a bit of rallying? Actually, I want to do circuit stuff. What made you change?
I think, well, obviously my dad is quite a big part of it with me. You know, we go on the adventure together, so I think we liked the look of it, and we thought we'd go and have a look, and you know, we've just been stepping up from there. You know, we wouldn't go and do it if we weren't ready, but I think we've been doing a pretty good job. So every year we've been making a step on. Next year I'll probably stay in GT3 again. Yeah, it just looks like good fun, so we thought we'd give it a go.
Fantastic. There's Kenny Lee coming into the pits in that Toyota, so I'm not quite sure why you would do that unless it looks like they might be going for a driver change here. That's an interesting decision to make behind the safety car. So you're fourth at the moment. Are you going to be going back in the car at all? Obviously, we've only got 2 hours, 18 minutes to go.
Yeah, no, I think I'm done for the day.
You got your shorts on, so that must be it.
Yeah, it's still hot enough for shorts at this time. Yeah, no, I think I'm done for the day. Andrea will be able to see the race out, and Alvaro too. So yeah, I mean, if the safety car come in, we'd like a crack at the overall podium, but you know, conditions out there are too wet at the minute, but we don't know, it might dry up, and I think we've got a good crack at the overall podium with Alvaro and Andrea driving.
We've heard some of the Aussie drivers in particular say, if it's raining so much, you just drive slower, and then it's fine. But presumably it's not that simple.
Yeah, no, it's not really. Just the problem is aquaplaning. You know, it'd be okay if everyone could drive around at the same speed, but it's that unpredictability. You know, the cars are so expensive, and you know, it's quite dangerous when it starts to aquaplane on the straight at upwards of 150 mile an hour. So it's not really a nice situation to be in, and it's just, I suppose, they're looking after everybody's safety first and foremost. At home, when we get rain, normally it's okay to drive.
Well, yeah, someone running a little wide there. Didn't quite
seems to be
catch who it was. No, but I don't think they lost too much in terms of time, and it could have been worse. But as you say, these conditions are really tricky. So do you have a long-term career goal, something you want to do, or just keep progressing and see where it ends up?
Yeah, well, the goal is to get a factory contract and make a living out of the dream, so to call it. So yeah, I'm in university now as well. I'm in final year doing economics and sociology, so I've got to keep mum happy by doing that. So we'll keep doing that for another year and see where it goes. So it's all looking up at the minute.
Fantastic. So what do you make of how have you found this? How's the team found this race weekend? Because it's quite a new team, isn't it? New for 2015.
Yeah, new for 2015. They went about and bought 3 cars at the start of the year and attacked the GT Asia series. So I think, you know, it's a hard championship over there, and they had some teething issues, but they've won some races and done a really good job, and I've been impressed by everybody at the team and how professional they are this weekend. So the car is as good as it is at home and the factory cars. So that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting to see the team's progress. And in British GT, you've been racing with the Von Ryan team, and Davey Ryan has now moved back to Formula One with the Manor squad. How was it working with Dave Ryan?
Yeah, Dave Ryan's a legend. I think they said to me at the start of the year he's forgotten more about motorsport than we can ever learn. So yeah, he's just an all-round legend, really, really nice guy. And you know, obviously he ran the McLaren F1 team for years, and obviously that speaks for itself. But yeah, just to see how he operates the team, and everyone respects him so much, right from the mechanics right to us. You know, you know not to step out of line, which is a good thing. But he did a great job for us in British GT, and they did a brilliant job in Blancpain Endurance as well, and won some races. So they definitely were a well-sorted team, and now obviously now he's gone to Manor, so things will change a little bit.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Andrew. Really appreciate you taking the time to come up here and have a little chat to us. He's got no driving to do, so might as well. And he's got a brolly as well. That's what we've needed all day at us, is a brolly. So cheers, guys. Thank you. So good to chat to Andrew there for a little bit. 2 hours and 15 minutes to go. And Andrew Watson there, the driver for the 55 FFF racing team by ACM. And yeah, good to hear from him.
Yeah, good to hear from Andrew Watson, who has become, in a pretty short space of time, a real gun in British GT racing, hasn't he? He was saying, coming out of one mate Ginetta Racing, but also keeping an eye on his studies. Now, the teams continue to talk to race control. The weather continues to be monitored. From our window, it doesn't look horrendous anymore, but we'll probably learn more in a few minutes when we get a report firsthand from outside. But if people are still slithering off wide, as we caught a glimpse of a lap or two back behind the safety car, you know it's still pretty grim out there. And of course we've had now virtually, not quite, but virtually an hour behind the safety car, haven't we? Because we started on the hour and we've just completed 45 minutes of the hour. So we're getting there as the field works its way on. Now lap 175. Now the airport is saying that the weather is due to improve by 11 o'clock, maybe a little bit before 11 o'clock local time, yes, make the point, but that is an hour and a quarter away, so hopefully even before then things will improve. Now define improve, it won't get sunny I'm afraid, but it might at least stop raining, and hopefully it will dry out. But as Andrew Watson was saying, it's still warm enough for shorts, but let's hope the road can dry sufficiently to give the teams a chance to think about slicks. Having suggested it wasn't raining as badly, that shot tells a completely different version, doesn't it? And again, you've got that standing water on the road. That's the real problem. It's not just the fact that it's wet, because as people have been saying during the race, you can drive to your pace, but it's the standing water, because if you can't see the standing water in the dark and you suddenly happen across it, then you're in all sorts of strife. So, and you're trying to get through traffic as well in some cases, so you have to go offline, then you find puddles that you didn't know existed, and it is a big issue for the drivers. But the race continues, albeit under these controlled conditions. So Nicky Thiem, who's probably not had the most exciting hour of his life, continues to lead the way. Christopher Hasse and Stefano Ortelli run second and third, Alvaro Parent fourth. The discussion about number 15, the other Phoenix, the Hong Kong entry, and its missing lap continues. And one team has just suggested on the instant messaging service about whether teams ought to have a vote to carry on now, because we've had so much behind the safety car. That's a little uncharitable maybe of the team in question, but there's been an awful lot of running thanks to the weather. It's not an organisational issue, make the point, it's safety and the weather that has thrown into this. So big frustration. It's the first year the events run in December. The date had to be shuffled a little bit because of the need to get cars here from the end of domestic championship seasons, and also there was the FIA GT World Cup for the first time at Macau. On the one hand, it actually cost us a few cars because some were damaged, but it also necessitated the date to be changed just to give teams a chance to get the cars transported from there to here and worked on, ready for this weekend. So we are at 21:47 local time. We've got 2 hours and 11 minutes of the race to go. And the race order remains the same as it has for the last, what, 48 minutes of this stint, but a good few laps before when we had the safety car out. So the field continues. I'm still impressed, I have to say, on Twitter how many of you are still watching this and still bearing with us as the field turns out of turn 9. So Audi 1, 2, 3, McLaren 4, Bentley 5, Audi 6, Ferrari 7, Mercedes 8, Ferrari 9 and Bentley 10 is the order, as it has been for the last now 48 minutes of this stint. As I say, bearing in mind that we'd already had a few laps where no overtaking was permitted under safety car conditions prior to that. Meanwhile, in race control, Alain Adam, as the race director, has to think about the restart, if at all, and when for this. The team's just being reminded that although, of course, a stint under normal circumstances is 65 minutes, when the safety car is out, it is 70, because, of course, you are going at a slower pace, and therefore you can't necessarily time it so that you are in bang on the 65-minute mark, so you're given that 5-minute window. So the team is just being reminded that it is 70. Through turn 14 comes the leader as WRT heads for the pit lane. So the two Belgian Audi Club Team WRT cars from second and third head for the pit road. It's not a stint that's finished, but they're taking this opportunity now to do whatever work is required. And then they can dispatch the cars back into the race. So it's going to be a driver change, and the WRT teams want clear passage for the car, which works. So 150 comes in, first of all, and that's for Christopher Hauser to get out. Christopher needs to get in. And in the background, we've got number 17, which was Stefan Ortelli, and he will give way now as well. So driver changes, the fuel has gone in, do they get another set of wets? They've hardly used that set, so they can afford to stay on them. Perhaps the theory here is that when everybody else has to come in at the end of the stint, they'll just buy their way to the front of the queue, because they'll catch up to it now. 150 has a problem, it has lost second position, and so straight away that car is in strife because it's lost position, and it will go back out as soon as possible. But 150 struggling to get going, it's still stationary, so the car that was in second place has a problem in the pit lane. The plan has worked well for the number 17 WRT entry, because that has just jumped up one spot and could well, on the restart when everybody else pits, get the race lead. But this car all of a sudden has been unable to restart, and worried faces peer into the car, and more mechanics come over and see what they can do. But while it's on the apron, there's a limited number of people that can touch it, so they have to be mindful of that pit lane regulation. Others that have been in, Alessandro Pianguidi, now Davide Rizzo in number 11 Ferrari. Tanigara has taken over the Mercedes 35. So this car is losing place after place after place. Is it going for the garage? I think it might be. Or can they get it started? It started, it goes. So finally, number 150 does get going, but that's going to be the first one for Jack to investigate. 150 then blasts back down the pit lane, but with a lot of time lost there in the pits. Big dramas for number 150. There it is, it's on track again. So the car turns its way out of turn number 1. It'll catch the queue, but it puts itself to the back, and it's lost places as a result of being in the pits for all that time. So the good news is it's not lost too much, but the bad news is it has lost. Whereas the sister car came out of that pretty well. So there are the WRT engineers and driver Christopher Hauser. Christopher Meese having taken the car over, just discussing what it was that went wrong, but is it all from the works? Was it an electrical issue? Well, we'll hopefully get to the bottom of it. So number 150 then loses places. Can it buy them back? It will now try and catch up with everybody else. So lap 177 we're on. Time around, the leader comes in, so Nicky Thiem heads down the pit road, and now we need to see where he rejoins relative to the WRT cars. So can the Phoenix car keep hold of the race lead out of all of this? More and more and more people working down the pit lane. So Vincent Voss of WRT may be able to answer the number 150 question, because we've had the places changed, but also we've had this drama for 150. We'll come to Vincent Voss in a moment, because we've got the lead car in. It's not going to be the most urgent of pit stops, because it doesn't really have to be while the safety car is out, but the race leading car, as was, heads down the pit lane, and I think it should be okay to stay ahead of WRT out. In fact, double check in a moment, but there it is, back on track, and as it goes into turn 1, over the timing line, it's just gone number 11 Ferrari, so the 17 WRT Audi, we'll double check in a moment, may have taken over the race lead in the darkness. Let's hear though from Vincent Voss. We caught up with him at last. He's with Jack.
So Vincent, pitting behind the safety car, what was the thinking behind that?
Well, that's the only way to get to the front, I think.
So does that mean you've only got to stop once more before the end?
Well, this we will see. You know, many things can still happen.
But there's a problem with the 150 car.
Yeah, we had an electrical problem, but then it was solved.
Are you going to win this?
We will do everything to.
Best of luck. Thank you.
That shows commitment. When Vincent is not that forthcoming in his answers, you know he means business. So I think you've just seen the dice roll there by WRT. 55 has pitted, and Alvaro Parent is still behind the wheel, so that car is out of sequence, but it has made a pit stop. It was second when it came into the pits, but it will drop down, of course, now as everything cycles through. So we've got the 70 minutes of the stint coming towards the end, and so people making sure that they can get through. But Alvaro Parent, according to the timing screen, has stayed behind the wheel of that car. Lawrence Vantor shown as having taken over at 17, interestingly. Safety car light still on, so frustration for the teams that want to go racing, but if the weather conditions don't permit, it's easy to be critical, but if you're out there in the dark and you can't go racing, it's interesting. There's one team in particular that's very keen to get on with this. Others are perhaps more experienced teams saying how the weather conditions are mitigating against it and being just accepting of the situation. Stuart Leonard has vacated 17 after a really impressive job, first time out here and in that car. Let's hear from the man himself.
Howdy, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going well. I think this morning was actually very tough. Obviously it's a new car for me. It's the first time out in the car, and the heat was really quite incredible. I think it made it probably the toughest stint I ever did in my career.
You've raced at Snetterton though, so you know surely it must be similar.
Not even close. The heat just doesn't compare. It's just it's a different. It's just it's extremely tough. But then when it started to rain, it sort of came together a bit more. But yeah, no, in the rain it was actually really nice to drive. The temperatures cooled down and it was easier to focus and push on.
How is it working with Laurent and Stefan? Obviously both very experienced guys in these cars.
Oh, it's a fantastic experience for me. I'm just trying to soak it all up, to be honest.
Well, we're soaking a lot up here. What's the plan for the future? Would you like to do more with WRT in the future, or is this just a one-off?
we have a good relationship, and I'm sure.
Okay, and what can you do then in the rest of the race? Can you win this, or did because the 150 car just had a problem, didn't it, at the pit stop? So it's kind of you or Phoenix now.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't want to speak too early.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, there are exciting plans, we are told, for the future, but I'm sure that'll all pan out with Stuart Leonard announcing it when he can. So after the pit stops, as predicted, Laurens Vanthoor takes over the lead. So we have 17 now in the lead of the race. It has worked, and that puts WRT only by 1.6 seconds ahead of Nicky Thiem. So Vanthoor leads there in 17, Nicky Thiem second, and Christopher Mies will be third. So even though he lost some places within the stops, he gained them back by others now having to pit ahead of him, and Alvaro Parente is in fourth place. So that's where we're up to now as the field turns its way behind the safety car for lap 179, and 17 Audi then takes over the lead with the decision to come into the pits, catch the field up and get onto the tail of the queue of cars, and number 17 then now is in the lead of the race. But we are still looking forward to a continuation of the battle when we get there, and we've now had just about the full hour behind the safety car since this stint got underway, because the weather conditions just have not improved enough to enable the race director confidently to let the cars go, which is a real frustration for all concerned. But he feels that still the safety car is required, and the weather forecast is saying that things will improve, but when that's going to be, we'll have to find out. But as the field works its way then now down towards the end of lap 179, the weather we have now a far cry from the conditions that we were enjoying at the very start of the race, because at midday when it got underway it was all very different. This is how the race looked at midday, just before, as the lights went green. The cars blasted away, and it was Gianmaria Bruni from pole position who managed to gap the race lead on the way down to turn one. But a great start from Carlo Van Dam, put him round the outside up into second place. He was able to defend from Alvaro Parente, who in turn lost out to Stefan Ortelli, who went round the outside in the Audi. Christopher Haase tried to gain ground on the inside, found the path blocked, and we had three pit lane starters, one of whom was Maxi Buch after an engine change in the Bentley, and he was working his way through the field just as quickly as he could catch up to them, and by the end of his stint he'd gone from last to midfield. Dramas early on from John Martin because he was punted into the gravel, the Porsche with quite a lot of damage, and a very lengthy pit stop ensued. Gianmaria Bruni was the leader, but contact with the Lotus put the Lotus out of the race of Anthony Chan. Bruni had damage and the car was never as good from that point on. Mitch Gilbert had a pit lane fire. He got out of the car as rapidly as he possibly could. The fire was extinguished. The car is still going, but it was a big delay that the team could have done without, and that in turn was the catalyst for a few more dramas later in the race. There was another good battle between Warren Luff and Guy Smith, Porsche versus Bentley. Both cars now sadly have faded away, but Guy Smith at the time had the pace and went round the outside of the GT3 spec Porsche and gained the place at turn one. After the spin, Jimmy Bruni was hard at work, clawing his way back up the order. He made the dive on the inside of Parente at turn one. Ferrari ahead of McLaren. Christopher Haase in the Audi was catching up to them as well, but then more dramas came for Bruni. A punctured tyre. The car limped its way back to the pit lane, shedding rubber as it did so. Matt Griffin did the next stint with damaged suspension. James Collado in the next stint had an ECU problem and stopped on the track. It had to be changed. They had to sort out the rear suspension, but worse was still to come. Number 8 Bentley lost time on a tyre change as the car was still showing lock as it came into the pits, as Parente managed to find a way past the number 17 Audi as they worked their way through turn 4. And 17 lost out to a charging Mercedes as well, the only one on the entry list this year, but the Japanese team running number 35 managing to get the car up the pecking order. It was all action at Phoenix Racing as the pit stops cycled through. Number 14 Toyota running like clockwork despite a bit of damage at the back. WRT put Laurens Vanthoor into number 17 and he flew. He gained a place away from McLaren heading down towards turn 9. That put the car back into contention as limping to the pit lane was James Collado, and this time around the damage was enough to put him out of the race. Great battle out on track. 3 wide, Ferrari, Mercedes and Lamborghini, GT3 and GT Cup spec cars. A snapshot of what the Sepang 12 Hours is all about. Close racing and mouth-watering brands. And then at about 4 o'clock, the rain came. And it was so heavy that the race was suspended. The red lights came on, everybody headed for the pit lane. The marshals, when the rain eased a little, did their best to sweep it away. And then, behind a safety car, we got things back underway once more. The cars made themselves a form queue at the end of the pit lane, ready for the instruction to be released round to the grid, but not everybody got there because there was a gear shift pressure problem for number 9 Bentley. It was Vincent Abril behind the wheel. He had to stay behind the wheel, but in the pit lane, the car went to its garage and it lost, as a result of that, another 3 or 4 laps. So the safety car led them away. The track was wet, the rain was still falling, and it wasn't long before the light started to fade as well, and it wasn't long, I'm afraid, before the rain intensified once more as well. Those teams that were able to get some running in before the safety car was deployed were able to shuffle the order. Alex Young, for example, in number 15, hard at work, powering his way past number 17 Audi, in the hands, at the time, of Stuart Leonard. Amateur racer Leonard, first time out in the car, dropped away a little bit and was then caught by Andrew Watson, who had a real go to find a way past him, but all the way to the end of their respective stints, the Audi of Leonard fended him off. A new set of wet tyres, Yokohamas, for the WRT Audis this weekend, and blasting back into the race went number 150 as 16 came in, driven by Marcus Winkelhock, and he double stinted. He stayed behind the wheel. First of the Europeans, really, so to do. Andy Soucek was delayed in traffic as he tried to find a way past Juan Bo in the GTC leading Lamborghini, and number 16, Marcus Winkelhock, eventually gave way to Nicky Thiem. But as the light fell, the rain intensified, and that meant that more and more standing water was an issue. It was the undoing of the number 67 Porsche when Andrew Tang found it at turn 14, slithered off, just avoided the gravel, headed to the pit lane and almost took the race leader with him. That was enough to bring out the red lights once more. The race was suspended, and when the race director felt that the conditions were just about good enough, he allowed the cars back, but behind the safety car. And that is where we stay. We've not yet been in a situation where the safety car can peel off and the race can back underway because the rain is still falling and there is still too much standing water for the officials to feel confident about the safe release of the cars. So we have Laurens Vanthoor as the new race leader, all a result of this last round of pit stops where WRT pitted together. So we're on lap 181. We've got just under 2 hours to go, and it is number 17, Laurens Vanthoor, who leads the way from number 16, Nicky Thiem, and number 150, Christopher Mies behind. And then in 4th place, now 55, Andrea Caldarelli, having taken over from Alvaro Parent. Now, all the portents are there for a 4-way lead fight. Trouble is, we don't know when we're going to go racing again. We hope it's not going to be far off. The airport's weather information saying that things are improving. By 11 o'clock, it should be a lot better. Well, we are now at 10:05 local time. And the race order you can see at the foot of the screen as the cars continue behind the safety car. Number 150, as I thought it might have been, an electrical problem costing it time in that pit stop, but it's still in 3rd place. And of course, behind the safety car, it doesn't lose very much either. So that's still in the mix as the field turns its way now behind the safety car up through turn 9. And the classes, GT3 is as overall. In fact, you've got GT3 cars locking out the top 10. Pro-Am is still being led by number 11, Ferrari, which is now Davide Rizzo at the wheel. But it's WRT's 1st and 3rd, and to explain more about how they're attacking this in terms of strategy, let's catch up with Pierre Dieudonné from WRT with Jack.
So Pierre, that pit stop strategy worked pretty well. What was the thinking behind it?
Well, just as you said, it was a strategy. We got into the window where we could stop and put Laurens in the car for the last 2 stints, and it worked quite well. At the same time, Felix tried the same kind of a stop a little bit later, but I think their pit stop was a little bit slow, so it moves us back, or it put our car in the lead. So now it's a better situation for us, because if they decide to stop the race, we are leading, and well, hopefully the condition will improve, and then we will have a good fight for victory. So.
Over the last 4 years, how many races have you won thanks to quick pit stops? I mean, I've lost count.
Yeah, well, in this case, it was not a matter of pit stop speed, because it was on the safety car. This was just a strategy, a tactical move, which was quite smart. But it's true that our team is quite strong in pit stop speed in normal condition. And, you know, it's a whole thing. You need strong driver, strong car, and a strong team. And, yeah, we're doing quite well. Usually we keep trying, you know, it's never, you're only as good as your last win.
And you talk of strong drivers. Is there anyone else you'd rather have in the car than Laurens Vanthoor for the final 2 stints?
Well, I think I can say that because it's quite obvious. No, Laurens will stay in the car for the last 2 stints if the race goes to the end. But having said that, you know that if we decide to put Stefan Ortelli, he can also do a good job. Stuart Leonard also, it was his first race with us and he did a really solid job, so we are quite happy with our drive, and again I think we are strong.
And do you know what happened with the 150 car? Vincent said it just didn't get away.
Yeah, it was an electrical problem, so the car was slow to restart. It's unfortunate, but that was just bad luck.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the green lights on the safety car, allowing those to overtake that are not the race leading car. So what the officials are trying to do now is get the correct race order. We have a 17 Laurens Vanthoor behind, so the green lights say you may overtake. It doesn't mean the race has restarted, it means you are clear to overtake the safety car, and it's the 2 Toyotas really that have been allowed through to catch up at the back, and they will go at as good a pace as they can, but it's going to take a long time for those cars to catch up to the back of the Crocodile. Interesting that Pierre Dieudonné has already got the thought in his mind that there may not be a restart, because if the weather conditions don't improve, and they're in the box seat, but they've obviously factored that into the decision to bring the cars in, and of course it did work, as we were saying it would likely do at the time. You get them in, you get the pit stop out of the way, you can easily catch up to the Crocodile because you don't have to change the tyres because they're not being worked terribly hard under the safety car for an hour. And then as soon as everybody else has to pit ahead of you, bang, you are then into the lead of the race. It would have been a 1-2, but for Christopher Mies having that electrical issue that prevented the car from getting away. And that's about the only thing you can write down against that car as a problem in the race. And it's taken until effectively the 10th hour to get there. Number 17, still all okay for that car as far as we know. So the order has changed just a little because of those pit stops. So number 17, Laurens Vanthoor, now into the lead, and he was there just at the end of the 10th hour, and that means for the first time the car gets to the end of an hour as the leader. So that's the third different leader we've had in terms of hourly classification. It was the 11 Ferrari early on, the Singer Motorsport car. Then it was number 16 Audi from the 2nd hour to the end of the 9th, and at the end of the 10th hour, number 17 Laurens Vanthoor there is the race leader. Second is number 16, which is Nicky Thiem, so that was a swap. Third is Christopher Mies. Fourth, 55, Andrea Caldarelli. Fifth is Bentley 8, Max Buch. Sixth is number 15, Audi Sean Thong. Seventh is number 11, Ferrari Davide Rizzo. Eighth is 35, which now the Mercedes has passed once again into the hands of Tatsuya Tanigawa. In 9th place is 27, the Ferrari of Dominic Ang. In 10th place, number 9, Bentley Guy Smith. And in 11th is 23, the GTC leading car of Afik Yazid. We just had a change for 12th, in fact, because after a pit stop, number 67 now is up into the place, Lim Kyong Lian, at the expense of down to 13th, number 7, the NZ Motorsports Porsche has just got Alif Hamdan back behind the wheel. 14th is 26, Daniel Bilski, Lamborghini. Audi, I should say. 15th is 51, Warren Luff in the Porsche. 16th and 17th, this is a case of ho-ho, because 87 is 16th, and that is Melvin Mo Lo Ho, and in 17th place behind it is Ho Will Liam, who is behind the wheel of the 86 touring car class leading Toyota. 18th is 42, Romain Brandella in the Sport Garage Ferrari 458. 19th is number 69, Matthew Swanepoel, the South African in the Lamborghini that we had the fire from, which killed him behind the wheel early on. 20th is a very frustrated John Martin, number 33 Porsche, after the dramas that befell him early on. 21st, number 14 Brian Lee with his Toyota. And then 22nd, the last car running, is 62 Douglas Koo in the Subaru, the STI, that's got four-wheel drive and should be ideally suited to the slippery conditions. Right, Marcus Winkelholt then. His car led, his car is now second. Let's see what his reaction is to the news. He's in the pits with Jack.
So Marcus, last time we spoke, you were in the lead. We haven't had any racing, and now you're second. Do you know how that came to be?
Yeah, we came in one lap too late during the safety car, and yeah, that cost us the lead and yeah, probably the race.
How does coming in a lap later affect you? Because surely everyone's going around the same speed.
Yeah, actually it was a misunderstanding. Actually the plan was to come in that lap, and it was just a little bit too late on the radio, and yeah, misunderstanding on the communication, and then we lost the race with that.
But if the safety car comes in, you got a chance to still win it.
To be honest, I don't think so. We still have to do a driver change where we will lose a lot of time, so I think it's going to be very difficult.
Okay, best of luck.
Thank you.
And the safety car, Jack, will be in this time. So we are, hooray, going to go racing then. The decision has been taken to let them loose, and that's going to give us an hour and 45 minutes of the race to go then. The safety car boards are there, but the safety car in this lap, the timing screen tells us we're going to go racing this time around then. One of the teams that's currently leading its class has just posed the question of race control, why don't you stop the race? Well, the officials want to get to the end if they can, and they're going to let them go. So now everybody gets ready for the restart. The safety car lights out, will peel in, and the cars now make their way up towards turn number 14, ready for the resumption of the race. Into turn 14 they come. This is where number 16, the Nicky team at the wheel, has got to be really, really quick to try and find a way past WRT, although they've got a driver change to do and put Melnhoff back in the car, whereas Vantor, we are told, will go to the end in number 17, but the race is back on now as they come across the timing line, and Laurens Vantor tries to break away. 7/10 of a second he's pulled out already as they go over the timing line down towards turn 1 in the dark, then in the rain as well. Laurens Vantor ahead of Nicky team. Third is Christopher Mies, and then fourth, trying to work his way up through the traffic, is Andrea Caldarelli in the McLaren, but up front is Audi 1, 2 and 3. And actually Christopher Mies looks like he's just dropping away ever so slightly as the cars now turn their way out of turn 2. Look at the spray. This shows you how wet it is still out there and how difficult this is going to be for the drivers. The spray, the standing water. In the dark, you've got virtually no reference points that you've been building up in the daylight over the course of the weekend. This really is tough for them. And for the pro drivers up front, they've got to be absolutely flat out. Conditions accepted as they work their way up out of turn 4. There in 150 is Christopher Mies. He's flashing his lights at the traffic ahead of him as through turn 5 they swoop, but Vantor is the pioneer in this. He is on every corner, the first man to come across the puddles. He will be the man that either gets the speed and the grip level absolutely right or absolutely wrong, and everybody will judge what they're doing based on his performance up the road. So he's trying to build the gap over Nicky team then. We're on lap 184. And 1 hour and 43 minutes of the race remain as working his way through the traffic as best he can will be Christopher Mies. Andrea Caldarelli likewise. He's just got himself back past the number 11 Davide Rizzo Ferrari, which I think he's still going to struggle in these conditions. They were struggling for grip and for handling early on, and life isn't getting a whole lot better as the cars now work their way down once more towards the left-hander at turn 9. There is Caldarelli in the McLaren, the FFF racing car, and look at the way that he's scarpering away from the Ferrari. Davide Rizzo is not slow, but Caldarelli storming clear, and that again, for my money, underlines the fact that Audi's not 100% with the Ferrari, which, bear in mind, leads the Pro-Am part of the race, so that could yet change before the very end. That's another one to keep an eye to, as there is the second place car, Nicky team. He's lost out against Vantor, hasn't he, because Laurens, the Belgian driver, has stormed clear on this restart lap. Up they come towards turn 14 again. This is the run past the support race pits. You can have different configurations of the circuit, and the whole standalone pit area can be run from there. Into turn 14 they come. It's the hairpin. It brings you to the end of the lap, and out of it will come in a moment Laurens Vantor as the race leader, back under full live green flag race conditions. Past the pits he will come. Vantor for Team WRT leads the way, and the gap that he has pulled in the space of a lap is over 3 seconds. 3.059 seconds it is between Vantor and Nicky team. Now, is it going to take Nicky a lap or two to really get into his stride in these conditions, or is he genuinely going to be outpaced to that extent by Vantor? You understand now why Pietro Donne wanted him behind the wheel in this last couple of stints, because his pace is absolutely stellar. Number 8, Max Buch, round the outside of the traffic. He's in 5th place, but a lap back on Caldarelli. So Max Buch needs some misfortune for those ahead, really, to buy any places out of this. There is Stefan Ortelli, who has thanks WRT on his visor this weekend, suggesting that we may not see as much of him in the future in GT racing, as an Audi driver at least, as we have been doing. Over the timing line come some of the back markers, but out on track, the battles at turn 4 continue. Spot the car, spot the headlights as they turn their way through. Lamborghini goes through. Bentley with the green grille behind is the next shape that we identified. Porsche in the midst of all of this as well. There is 27, which is down in 9th place. It's Dominic Ang at the wheel, but he is, dare one say, angling for the lead of Pro-Am. Well, at the moment, that's 3rd. He wants to try and get past Tanigauer in the Mercedes before he can think about the class lead. Tanigauer is in a big hurry to get up onto terms with the Ferrari of Davide Rizzo. So there is 55. Andrea Caldarelli, co-team owner, it's FFF Racing with AMC, and the AMC bit of the team is Caldarelli's. So he has done his bit for the moment, as he's trying to climb his way up the order once more. There is the still troubled Ferrari, which has got Davide Rizzo at the wheel, and the lap time's just fading away a little bit as they work their way once more with an hour and 40 to go. In some cases, there'll be one more pit stop to make, but as they head up towards turn 14, Vanthoor getting away. In the first sector, he pulled out another half a second. In the second sector, he pulled out another 7/10, nearly 8/10 of a second, so the lead is building all the time. You can understand now that frustration from Marcus Winkelhock, and I'm surprised that Nicky Tim isn't going with him, because people say he's very, very good, and he proved in the dry earlier that he was a real star, but here in the wet, in the dark, admittedly, Nicky doesn't know the cars as well as Laurens Vanthoor does. He doesn't spend as much time in them. Maybe that is where the significant factor is going to come into play here, but the gap is up to 4.7 seconds. We've had reported another spin from 67, which is now Liam Kyong Lim at the wheel. And now Nicky Tim is being reeled in by Christopher Mies, who there, look, is just creeping into shot behind him at turn 2. Takes a very different line, looking for the grip on the outside of the road. Does that help the slingshot downhill towards turn 3? Not really, but maybe turn 4 is going to be the opportunity as they now work their way once again up towards the next right-hander, heading into the braking zone in a moment. 2 sets of headlights overlap. To the inside line goes Christopher Mies. It's partly to try and find a way through. It's partly to see something, because that way he can get out of the spray. So now he's trying to overtake a car in a genuine battle for position. In the dark, there is one racing line, and that's horrible because it's wet. To do any overtaking, you've got to go offline to try and find a way by. This is not going to be easy for Christopher Mies. Can he find a way through? We'll see.
There's a bit of a weather forecast in Adders. Rain to continue until midnight with a 30% chance of more thunderstorms.
Oh.
And temperature 24 degrees, humidity 100%. 100%. So thanks for that. But, well, Mies is impressive because his last lap was a 20.6, only half a second slower than Vanthoor, and he's tucked in behind the car in front. That was Christopher Hasso we saw a moment ago, but a good lap from Christopher Mies there, nevertheless, and now we're going to see whether he can get past.
Absolutely right. So Christopher Hasso is the fascinating spectator in all of this. He's done his bit, but he knows how good Christopher Mies is as well. This year's Australian GT champion. So we've got Nicky Tim then coming under attack, but while he's defending, of course, both of them are losing time to Vanthoor. So Christopher Mies wants to get through, because it's also not only is he stuck there in 3rd and he wants to do better, but he's being compromised because the longer he's stuck there, the more time he's got to make up relative to one of the fastest GT3 racers in existence in the person of Laurens Vanthoor. Stefan Rotelli looking on. It's thumbs up from some, but it's a slightly furrowed brow from the French-born Monegasque. To the end of the lap then they come for 2nd and 3rd. The first set of headlights are Nicky Tim's Phoenix Audis, the second are the WRT Audis of Christopher Mies. Up towards the line they come. The gap at the start of the lap was 0.7 of a second. It'll be hovering about that, I would guess, because the closer Mies gets, the less he can see in the spray, and he can't find a way by it because it's just so difficult to pull out and go through offline where it's even wetter. So the gap remains at 0.7 of a second with an hour and 37 minutes of the race to go, and this is turn 1.
And Vanthoor took 1.7 seconds out of Team and Mies. He's certainly back, isn't he, on his recovery return drive after the injury he picked up in Misano back in October. Vanthoor leading the way, 6.4 seconds now clear of Team and Mies. And Caldarelli holding 4th place reasonably comfortably in the 55 McLaren. Again, the headlights flash towards the inside, then flash towards the outside. And Mies
Caldarelli on that last lap did a 2:25.3, so 4 seconds off the pace of the Audis up in front. No one is anywhere near the pace of these lead three. We've got Maxi Book doing 2:23s, 2:25s for Caldarelli. Thong's doing 2:35s. Vanthor's on 2:19s.
It's exceptional, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as he gets more familiar with the conditions in this stint and as the fuel load comes down, he's going to get quicker and quicker. But the gap that he's got over team is 6.4 seconds. He's done that in, what, 3 laps? And so Christopher Mies effectively now is 7 seconds behind the race leader, and he's still stuck there behind number 16, which of course is going to defend its second place. Nicky Team is not going to roll over and let the other Audi by. Yes, they're the same brand, but they're 2 different teams, and each wants the best result it can get. So Nicky Team defends, they work their way through traffic, then coming across the back markers, but the 2 sets of headlights close together in the background of the shot there as they head towards us. That's the fight for second and third place. Now, are they being caught by Caldarelli? The answer is no. At the moment, the 3 Audis up front have got far better pace than anybody else. The only thing that could possibly trip up Vantor is where he discovers the traffic. Well, he's just got past number 33, Mark Darwin, in the Porsche. And there's another one keeping out of harm's way as well, as the cars have got just over an hour and a half of the race to go. But it looks like they're going to have to cope with these conditions right to the very end from that latest weather update that we have. More headlight flashing. Second and third dive up the inside of the traffic there. That's the Mark Darwin car. Coming out of turn 14, Nicky Tim puts the power down. The car tries to squirm away from underneath him. Christopher Haase looking concerned because he wants Christopher Mies to get up and pass the Dane as quick as he can. He's 6/10 of a second back as they come over the timing line. Vantor then goes down towards turn 1.
Vantor was only 1.1 seconds quicker on that last lap. He must be in trouble.
Only, yeah, quite. Still 5 seconds quicker than fourth and slower, but yeah. There's Team then out of turn 2. And he's being pursued vigorously still by Christopher Mies as they drop down towards turn 3, the lowest section of the circuit. It's where the cars bottom out sometimes, and then the speed builds all the way through this section, absolutely flat up towards turn 4, heavy braking, turn uphill as well. So Vantor in the first sector, losing out to Nicky Team, fractionally quicker. His team only by hundreds, but interesting this. Is it going to be sustainable? Can he string it together sector by sector, lap by lap, as the cars now work lap 188, out of turn 5 they come. There, look, Nicky Team has got Christopher Mies tucked up behind him. Vantor up the road, did have to perhaps in the first sector of this lap think about the traffic, so mindful of that. The gap will have come down a gnats, but in the second sector he's pulled away by another 7/10 of a second, so he's not hanging around at all, Lawrence Vantor. Why would we expect him to? Wide over the curve goes Team. Christopher Mies still hunting him down, but now you're seeing 2 evenly matched cars, 2 evenly matched drivers in pretty appalling weather conditions. Overtaking is not that easy. What Mies wants to do now is try and take advantage of the back marker situation. Doesn't work out there for him, or try and force an error out of Team.
Yep, and that's a very difficult challenge to try and accomplish for Christopher Mies, but Mies put in a superb drive at the final Blancpain Sprint Series race of the season at Zandvoort a month or so ago. Started at the back of the grid and got the car all the way up to second position, but the man he couldn't overtake and had to be let through was the man who was his teammate at the time, Nicky Team. There he is looking towards the inside, but just differing lines coming into 13, or has he got up and alongside? No, not quite, but he's right there.
Gave it a shot, didn't he? But the grip level wasn't really there for him. Can he do anything at turn 14? This is the real frustration. There's only one line, but the headlights move out. Up the inside comes Mies. He again tries to force a mistake out of Nicky Team. But he went so well at Spa this year. He's done so well on every outing he's had. He's not had that many, but Nicky Team does go well in this car, and he's hanging on in there. This, remember, is the new R8 LMS that has taken over from the Ultra that they've been running for a few seasons now. Over the timing line, it is now 8.9 seconds. Vantor to Team, Team to Mies is down to 4/10 of a second. There's more urgency now being displayed in the way that Christopher Mies is going as they head down to turn 1, absolutely nose to tail, closing right up under braking, and then the car washes out ever so slightly. Mies is throwing everything at this. Again, that wide line at turn 2, looking for the extra traction, hoping that will carry him quicker downhill. And now it's getting all very nervy down in the WRT garage. Now, is he close enough to think about a move up towards turn 4? Up they come, heading towards turn number 4. He pulls out, pulls back in again. Again, has a look up the inside. Doesn't pay out for him. And so as they accelerate now towards turn 5, the gap comes right down. And yet again, the closer he gets, the less Christopher Mies can see. That's why his lines have to be slightly different, just so that he has an idea of where the road will be going next. It's fingers crossed in the WRT pit bunker as Mies is getting closer and closer. Again, he pulls out of the spray. There's a flash of the lights now to try and distract Nicky Team, but if anything, it's Christopher Mies that runs the wider up onto the curb, carries the momentum out of turn 8. Both run wide over the curb, and Nicky Team, for the moment at any rate, is just not for cracking. Mies has a look up the inside, and again, doesn't think it's going to work for him, slots back in behind.
Mies has got an amazing sort of club disco flashing light thing, hasn't he? It goes really strobe, which is really going to distract him. Here's the look up the inside, and there goes Christopher Mies up the inside of Nicky Team, and he's through into second position. It had to come at an unlikely place. It's come at the double right-hander, and now it's a WRT 1-2. What can Team do to fight back?
Straight away, he's on the money, isn't he? Looking for a way back pass, but now he is faced with the spray. Visibility disappears, and that is going to really affect things for him. So that, I think, is now it for WRT in terms of getting the 1-2 finish. It's going to be very hard to see Phoenix coming back from this, especially if, certainly in the case of 17, they're going to keep Vantor into the very end. And you'd think they'd keep Christopher Mies in number 150 as well, wouldn't you? Because we've seen Christopher Hauser now in Civis. There's no reason, with respect, you put Enzo Ila in for the last stint. So those cars now should keep those drivers on board. And Marcus Winkelhock was talking about having to do another driver change. So let's see. Over the timing line they come. Through they come, with the lead gap now 9.3 seconds. 9.3 it is between them. Now, can Mies do anything about Vantor? This is going to be a real test of him.
Yeah, absolutely. He will want to prove his worth within the team, because he was bumped up to join Robin Freins for his championship attack once Vantor was injured, and did a very impressive job. And I've no doubt that if you're one of the other drivers in Audi, you want to show that maybe Vantor isn't quite the golden child that everyone makes him out to be, and that actually you've got the pace to compete. And Christopher Mies is going to want to demonstrate that. Now he's got some, well, as clear air as he can get in these kind of conditions, but he's still got an hour and a half to go.
True enough. So half a normal Blancpain round still remains. A 67 Porsche presses on in 13th place. There is Christopher Hauser, who is seeing his car now with an opportunity to perhaps catch the race leader, but 9.3 seconds is not going to be easy to erode. See what the gap is going to be in the middle sector. It's gone up in the middle sector, so Vantor is still pushing and still building that advantage. Less than 90 minutes remain of the Sepang 12 hours, and after a lengthy interruption thanks to the rain, we're back racing, back running, and the order could yet shuffle in these conditions. And as people start to get tired, you never know what might just trip somebody up. This is how the move came out of turn 9, and a good exit by Christopher Mies, and there the line just opened up on the inside. He was able to dive bomb through on the inside, brake later than Team, and it all pays out for him finally after lap of shadowing him. So Christopher Mies goes up to second, Nicky Team third, and starts to fall away, because straight away the gap is over a second between them as the cars head once more over the timing line, and we're on lap 190. Now, can Team be caught by Caldarelli? No, he's still lapping quicker, and the gap is still therefore going up, and it was a largish one anyway. So it looks like Audi is going to be good for a 1-2-3 finish out of all of this. So where's the next battle going to come from lower down? Max Boot fifth is still pulling away from Sean Thong, and in Pro-Am, David Rizzo is still keeping the Mercedes at bay. So we've got a bit of a stalemate lower down the order, and Nicky Team frustrated. Number 16 having lost the lead, lost second, and now losing pace against the WRT cars.
Christopher Mies, though, pretty much matched Vantor the lap before. This lap, where they've just crossed the timing line, he's 0.6 of a second slower. So Vantor's lead up to 9.9 seconds now. So he's looking very comfortable. Up in front is Lawrence Vantor, but they are both, well, 2 seconds quicker than Nicky Team on that last lap. So astonishing stuff. So they are definitely still pushing in that WRT squad. The strange thing about endurance racing is when they show pace like this, you suddenly go, well, why haven't they led from the start? Why has it taken them 10.5 hours to get to this position?
Yeah, but these, as we were hearing early on in the race, it's the last 3 hours where they need to start pushing, and this is perhaps what the strategy has worked towards in a long race like this, keeping that leading group, and that safety car definitely played into their hands, because don't forget, before we had the safety car prior to the red flag, they were half a minute back, and then, bang, they're right on the tail. Now, in fairness, making up half a minute, I think, might have been a different story altogether for Vantor. He would have made some of it up, but how much, who knows, but being brought back into the game, that really did go against Phoenix, that safety car period. So now it is Lawrence Vantor leading by 9.9 seconds. He's quicker in sector 1, he's quicker in sector 2. The lead gap's going to go up and up and up, isn't it? Not going to go up massively each lap, it'll go up. And so Vantor is cementing himself in the lead of the race. First race back after his accident in Italy. And in these cooler temperatures, and of course at a slightly slower pace anyway in the rain, he's proving that he is still absolutely as good as ever he was. Former single-seater racer. He was pretty decent in single-seaters, but it really is with Audi and the GT program that he's made his name, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. A reasonable record, but struggled to get the finances together to take any meaningful step up. And as a result, he joined WRT and switched to GT racing in 2012, partnering Stefan Ortelli that year. And since then, he's really looked back. And the interesting thing about the Audis is they're now down in the 219s. When this stint started, they were in the 20s and 21s. You look at the likes of Caldarelli, he's still in the 25s, where he was at the start of the stint. Max Buch still in the 23s, where he was at the start of the stint. Thong still lapping 10 seconds a lap slower, 14 seconds a lap slower than Vanthor in the WRT Audi. So it really shows you the kind of guys that can drive to these conditions.
But Davide Rizzo, who is the next incumbent, the latest incumbent of the troubled Singer Ferrari, he is lapping 10 seconds a lap slower than Tanigawa behind him, who is hunting him down for the Pro-Am lead. So with an hour and a half to go, I know they're on different laps, but the pace would suggest that that is a very troubled Ferrari. No wonder that was a team asking whether or not the race might be stopped, because it is in danger, realistic danger, of losing the Pro-Am lead, isn't it?
I think 55's in Pro-Am, the Caldarelli.
Oh, sorry, you're quite right, yes.
But nevertheless, they are very much in danger of losing that position. Because Rizzo now seems to have been, despite still going a lot slower than he'd want to, he's still matching Sean Thong in front of him, and they are a lap apart. So I don't think we'll see. We could see 6th, 7th, and 8th all coming together come the end of the race.
Yeah, Thong, Rizzo, Tanigawa. Yeah, Caldarelli, because of the inclusion in that car of Andrew Watson as sort of AM+, but also you've got the Japanese driver in the car as well, haven't you? Hiroshi Hamaguchi. He brings the AM section to it, yes. So that car, because of its pace, you kind of forget the fact that it is a Pro-Am. Hamaguchi has not seemingly done that many laps in it, though.
He did, I think he did the stint when you were having a break. So he was doing most of the stint that I saw, but that's the only time I remember him in the car.
So I'm just wondering whether...
Has he got to go in for the final?
Yeah, has he done enough? Yeah, but I wouldn't have thought they would work a strategy out to put him in at the end and have Alvaro Perret behind the safety car for a long period of time. So, yes, a bit perplexed by that. Anyway, we'll see. See how it pans out. So, Caldarelli is behind the wheel. He's in 4th place. And Max Buch is 5th, a lap down. That's the real frustration for the Bentley, because the car is lapping at a decent pace. It's quicker than the McLaren at the moment, but it's somehow got to find that lap back against it, and that is going to be very, very hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Lapping a good, 2 seconds quicker on that previous lap, but once you go a lap down, it's, as you say, it's very difficult to make it back up again. But nevertheless, they certainly do seem to have got on top of their troubles a little, Bentley. They were absolutely nowhere in qualifying, moderately nowhere at the start of the race, but have gradually hauled themselves back into pace contention at least. And if they can get a top 5 finish, I think that'll be a moderately satisfactory result, considering the state they were in 10.5 hours ago. We've got an hour and 23 minutes to go. Vanthor leads 9.5 seconds clear now of Christopher Mies. So Mies was substantially quicker on that last lap, but that could be put down to traffic potentially, as you see there. Caldarelli coming through the final corner and out over the start line once again in that McLaren that he's been campaigning in the GT Asia Series this year. The team set up by him. He's the ACM part of the team. FFS is a Chinese automobile company managed by Fusong Yang, who owns the team. Caldarelli acts as the team principal. Lines through the left-hander of turn 2 and then into the, in dry conditions, flat out downhill right-hander at 3. May not be quite flat out in these much more wet conditions. The team is now 5.7 seconds back from Christopher Mies. So team's pace has increased. He was only 2/10 slower than Van Thor on that previous tour, but it took him a little longer to get up to speed. So we see the 55 McLaren. Shame we've only got one, the other one being munched at Macau, because that was quite an exciting lineup with Akash Nandi, Kevin Gleeson and Aidan Reed due to enter that. Very young Malaysians and Australians, and Kevin Gleeson only started racing at 23, but in a good season in the TCR. So it's been nice to see them out there as well and see what kind of performance they could have achieved, but a 4th place I think for the Triple F team will be satisfactory.
It's also good that the reliability is there, because you think about certainly to the early days of the MP412C, which everyone thought was going to be the revolutionary GT car. It took a long, long time for the car's reliability to be there, and it was only selected teams, Hex's I suppose the first, and ART one of the first also, that really got a handle with them, and they proved, I think, as a car, that they weren't really for the AMs. They were good for the pro drivers, but there was that race in the wet at Malta we talked about earlier on, where most of the drama seemed to befall the amateurs and the gentleman racers in McLarens, and they just weren't friendly cars for the inexperienced drivers. They're a bit more refined for the 650S, but they're also a lot more durable.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why you see so many of the gentleman drivers out in the Ferrari, for example. The whole of the gentleman trophy, essentially, in AM Cup as it is now in Blancpain, is populated by Ferrari 458s, because they're very, not very easy to drive, but relatively compared to the McLaren. There's our GTC class leader, Afik Yazid, if you will, number 23 car. And they've led for a considerable amount of time now in GTC, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been pretty much the dominant team there, and they've got a 4-lap cushion. So Alif Hamdan in the Porsche, who is in second, is doing his best to get onto terms with the category leader, but for the moment the car of Afik Yazid is not to be stopped. Its lap times are 6 seconds plus per lap quicker anyway than the Porsche, so the lead, which is a monster one, is just going to grow and grow and grow, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. Touring car lead is still the 86 Toyota, and oh well, that's got a ginormous lead as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's gone up to 21 laps now, I think, in the touring car class. Over the 14 entry, the GTO Racing Team Toyota. See how much slower the cars are lapping at the moment as Yazid makes his way out, and he's 11th overall at the moment as well. Ahead of a couple of the GT3 cars that have run into trouble. Those of the 51 AMAC Motorsport Porsche, and the 42 Sport Garage entry as well. An hour and 19 minutes to go. Mies has got the gap down to 9.3 seconds. There is Alif Hamdan, second in class. Number 7 Team NZ Motorsport machine that he shares with John Curran, Graham Dowsett and Will Bamber. They are second in class at the moment, and then third in that class is the 67 Motorsport GDL squad, Bruce Lee, Andrew Tang and Lim Kyong Yam, who's at the wheel at the moment in 13th position overall.
Just going back to the McLaren and Hamaguchi not having done that much time in the car, and therefore, is that going to be a problem? Actually, the weather conditions, in a sense, have played into that team's hands, because when you've got these red flag situations in the race suspension, the maximum time of a bronze driver, which he is suspended, because with red flags and downtime, it's not fair to count it. It was the same at Spa last year when we had the red flag there with race suspension for an hour. So you don't have to worry about your bronze driver being in for a given amount of time, and therefore, why put him in if he doesn't want to either in these conditions? So they can just cycle through the faster 3 drivers, and that has, I think, helped keep that car up in 4th place.
But if he wants to drive, then there'll be a brave man to stop him, won't it? And very wide there for, I think it was one of the Porsches maybe just getting out of the way. But I think a lot of these, the AMs, the bronze drivers, have an awareness of their own ability. A lot of them. Some of them don't. But a lot of them do. When Marco Siegfried couldn't make the final race of the Stint Series season, the obvious choice was to put Renat Matt Salikov in there, and he said, I mean, I'd love to do it, but I don't think it's me. I'd rather we got, in the end, they got your own plate coming in it. So,
and Salikov has proved to be really good at endurance this year, hasn't he? Yeah, so it's interesting now. So what have we got? An hour and 16 minutes just over. The race still to go. And Fantor's advantage, we'll give you in a moment, because he's just gone over the timing line. And Christopher Mies is yet to come. Has that gap gone up? No, not markedly. 9.3 seconds. It's gone up by 10. That's all on that last lap. So a real extension of the advantage. Nicky Thiem goes through third. He's still falling away, only a little each lap, but it's all adding up. So now, from leading, he is 19.5 seconds behind the race leader.
Yeah, that is. There you see the touring car positions after lap 195 there on the screen. But that's a phenomenal. I think you've got to put it down to a phenomenal performance by Vanthor and Mies. They're still lapping just a tenth of a second apart. Nicky Thiem, meanwhile, is lapping about a second a lap slower, but still 2 seconds quicker than anyone else. So as you saw there, the touring car lead being held by the 87. The touring car lead being held by the 86 Wing Hin Motorsport car, Kenny Lee, Ho Will Hiam, and Wong Yu Chung. And it is Ho Will Hiam at the wheel at the moment. But for how much longer? Because he's coming into the pits. But they should be able to hold on to their 21 lap advantage. Second in that class is the 602 car, the Jim Hunter Motorsport machine. And I know the Aussies were tuning in earlier on and watching the progress. If you're still with us, thank you very much for joining us still. The D-Shell engine guys who built the engine for that Subaru STI Impreza 2.0. Hunter, Grant Johnson, Douglas Koo, and Alan Letcher. There's the 17 car then of Lawrence Vanthor leading the way. The car that started in second place, Vanthor stuck it in second position. He also set the quickest lap time in the qualifying session, but couldn't replicate it in the pole position shootout, and could only manage second as Jean-Marie Bruni went on to take pole. 9.8 seconds now the gap to Mies. So as soon as Mies got past Thiem, it has been pretty even Stevens between the pair of them. Remaining. And you can see inside the GT Racing garage. Hello. So, very happy looking around Beau there. And that 23 car, which has, I think, Yazid at the wheel at the moment, but here's Laurence Vanthor flashing his lights as he laps a Bentley.
Makes short work of that, doesn't he?
Yeah, blimey.
Bentley expected when they came here. Said earlier on, they had realistic, justifiable hopes of a win here, real confidence, but it's just not turned out to be the case. And the one curveball they were all thrown was this last-minute switch to Yokohama tyres, which wasn't a regulation. It was just that Yokohama came with its new Super Duper 2016 Catalog tyre, and the customers that ran them were really, really quick, and all the other teams on Thursday after practice thought, wow, you knew what they had to do to stay on the same pace, and so that's what's happened. Ended up with cars that aren't regulars on that type of tyre, having to adapt. You've got to say the Audis have adapted well.
Yeah, absolutely. When are we expecting these final round of pit stops to come then? On the hour, or would you say a little after because of when we went green again and they pitted previously?
Trying to work it back from when we had the last stop. Because you need really to stop again 65 minutes from the end. So I think they're going to really have to stop. So the window can start in 6 minutes time, 7 minutes time, and then we close. Back with you in a moment. Yeah, that's quite open. But it depends whether people are going to run to the very end of that window or come up the start of that window. But they don't want to push it too late.
You'd think in these conditions you'd get it done sooner rather than later, just in case you get another safety car or another red flag, and then you're in that position already. So you see the number 8 Bentley in the hands of Maxi Book, running in 5th place. A little German driver, and he is about 6/10 of a second a lap slower than Caldarelli in front of him at the moment.
Although he was quicker a few laps back, wasn't he? So that's a quirky one there. So Caldarelli in the Pro-Am leading McLaren, which has had a lot of pro over the course of the race, is then in 4th spot overall. There over the timing line goes Max Book.
So he's still less than a lap behind Caldarelli, but 1 minute 59 seconds behind. So he's only got a 20-second advantage before he gets lapped by Caldarelli. So he's not really going to be able to close that down in the next 1 hour and 10 minutes. And the Bentley guys aren't expecting action just yet, as they mess around on their phones. Vanthorpe Meese team, the top 3. Audi, WRT Phoenix, and there is Lawrence Vanthorpe on his 198th lap. Tanagawa is now just 17 seconds behind Rizzo. He's still going 10 seconds a lap quicker, so the battle for 7th place is the one. Car 11 versus car 35, because give that a lap and it'll be on.
Yeah, but he's 10 seconds a lap quicker. That Ferrari, again illustrating what we've been saying for the last 4, 5, nearly 6 hours, he's not well. And from a lap back, Tanagawa's got himself on the same lap as Davide Rizzo, and second in Pro-Am is on, isn't it, here? That's the closest battle as Vanthorpe comes over the timing line then. We've got 69 minutes and counting to the run. He drops down towards turn 1. Christopher Meese comes through 9.9 seconds back. The gap is still going up. So barring a disaster on the back marker, Vanthorpe is good here, isn't he? Keep out of trouble, just keep out of trouble for the remaining time. But it's now late in the day. You might start making mistakes. It's not just what you're doing that's the factor, it's the traffic around you. And when you come up against some of the GT Cup drivers or the touring car class drivers, the AMs, you never know what they might just do. So a certain amount of caution for
Vanthorpe, by his own admission, has had a season where he hasn't necessarily been able to keep it as clean as he would have wanted. You think of Spa in particular. The incident at Misano was, not his fault necessarily, but an unnecessary incident nevertheless. And I remember interviewing him after Portugal, before Misano had even happened, and he said, "I've made more mistakes this year. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because now I'm the number one, I'm seen as the number 1 guy, so that raises the pressure, and before there was no real pressure because I was just a young kid, but whatever it was, the incidents have befallen him, but there seems to be no fear in him at the moment."
He won the Nürburgring 24 hours, but didn't have a single win in the Blancpain Endurance Series. We didn't get an Audi outright win in all year. So this would be only the 2nd endurance win for Lawrence of the year. I know he's had his sprint series successes, but it's been a quirky old season for Audi as he works his way towards the end of lap 199. So we're heading towards 200. Relatively a few number of laps given the race suspensions that we've had, where people have been confined to the pit lane. But Lawrence Vanthorpe then will have an advantage of over 10 seconds come the end of this lap as he powers his way now up towards turn 14. He's still chasing after him. And Nicky Team 3rd, still well clear of Caldarelli, but he's rather in no man's land because he's not catching, nor is he being caught. He's definitely dropping away, but he's still lapping quicker than the McLaren in 4th spot.
Tanagawa was just 1.7 seconds behind Rizzo, so that change for 7th place is quite possibly, well, it has already happened, I think, because he was 2 seconds quicker in the first sector and was 1.7 seconds behind as they crossed the line. So I'd imagine that Tanegawa in that 35 Mercedes is now in front of Rizzo and was 4 seconds quicker in the middle sector.
And his sector time came up about 4 seconds before Rizzo's did. So he went through the beam first, so he's done it, hasn't he? Job done. So 7th and 2nd in Pro-Am is Tanegawa. Now he is 3 laps back on the McLaren. So there it is, confirmation that he's gone through. What they now need is for something to go wrong for that car up the road. But there's 3 laps of a gap between them. Caldarelli keeps out of trouble, then it's Pro-Am victory for the FFF Racing with AMC McLaren. But it's been a good effort by the Mercedes. It's a shame that time was lost early on, really, with the red flags. I think that's really what did for them. The virtual safety cars and the red flags all seem to conspire against that car. But yes, it's going strongly now.
Yeah, because they've had no incidents of note, really, have they? So a shame that they've lost for that time, and they're proving now as they close in on Caldarelli and may well unlap themselves from him to just go a couple of laps behind. Not going to beat the would go down to 3 laps behind, wouldn't it? So a matter of honour for the Japanese at the moment, which seems appropriate.
But Rizzo isn't going to lose any more, is he? I don't think, in an hour and 6 minutes, because he's 2 laps up on the Dominic Ang, up there 27 Ferrari.
Yeah.
Can't see 2 laps being lost in 66 minutes.
No, and Ang isn't lapping that much quicker. There's the Jim Hunter Subaru in the pits again. And who's winning the award for most amount of pit stops? It's 12, isn't it, for the number 51 AMAC Motorsport gang. Warren Luff, James Winslow and Andrew McPherson. They've had the most amount of stops in this race so far. Max Boots only had 7, as has Tanegawa, so 1 less stop than everyone else for the Bentley team.
8 stops for the leaders. And there is the Singer Motorsport Ferrari. That's, as we've been saying, not a well car. 602 we also caught a glimpse of in the pit lane a moment ago. Douglas Koo, regular touring car racer, who brought that in. But who gets the next of the short straws, really, to do a stint in a car that's not very well. This is now at the 65-minute mark, so the last stint can be no more than 65 minutes, so this is the minimum point at which you can start to do the stop.
Looks as though Stefan Ortelli is going to take over from Laurens Vanthoor here.
Interesting.
Maybe as a last hurrah, thank you, Stefan, for WRT. You can win the race for us.
Could be. We understand that Stefan is not necessarily confirmed for Audi's books for next year, but he might well... No, doesn't take over. Be there on standby, but he would hopefully still be a WRT driver, but not on the Audi payroll. But he walks across just in case Laurens Vanthoor, perhaps through some discomfort. He needs to have any respite, but we also had a similar situation 1 year in the Spa 24 Hours, where Greg Franchi wandered over to try to relieve Timo Scheider from behind the wheel, and even though it was a Belgian driver for the last stint, he was waved away. But that is because if you're going to go to the car and offer a drink bottle, you have to have a helmet on, just like all mechanics do. So under that regulation, Stefan Ortelli acts as an extra person to hand a drink bottle to Laurens Vanthoor, but perhaps also saying, okay, you can do another hour and 3 minutes. And so Vanthoor will lose track position, stay behind the wheel, goes back into the race. But don't forget, Mies and Tim will have to do another stop as well. So it's going to look good, isn't it, for number 17 to score the victory here. Other stops we just had from Afik Yazid, or Mohammed Afik Iqbal bin Mohammed Yazid in number 23. Stays behind the wheel of the GTC leading car. And others that have cycled through...
Caldarelli?
Will be, yes, Caldarelli is in. And Tanegawa, having now got his second place in class, celebrates for the pit stop.
Exactly. And is he going to hand over for this final stint? I think he is, because the chap who's getting in is drying his feet on a little mat. And,
it's very unfair on Matt, isn't it? The poor chap standing there having someone wipe your feet on.
He's got nothing else to do since his car retired.
That's true, yes.
So in comes the 150 car then as well of Christopher Mies. At the end of 200 laps of racing around Sepang, we've got an hour and 2 minutes to go. So Mies pits, and see if he double stints or whether he hands over to Christopher Hasser. Hasser looked like he still had his overalls and the like on.
But again, that could be for the same policy as Stefan Ortelli, if you're needed to come out and just offer a drink bottle to your driver. Let's see. So, once all these are done, there might be one final cruise of the pit lane for final thoughts coming into the last stint, but there's no extra driver, so it's all good. Now, the only other question mark over this is the electrical issue that they had on the last stop. If that's all good, then this should be seamless. If the electronic problem persists, it could be a longer pit stop, and then that could throw a lifeline to Phoenix, but the lights are on, so it doesn't look like they're going to change tyres either. Or does it? Let's see. Oh, they are having the electrical issue. Drop it down. It's away, but a little bit of time lost. But I think they've got away with all that.
Yeah, looks like it. So a little bit of a stutter. And is he going to come out in the lead of the race here? The 150 car of Christopher Mies? He is. So what's happened to Laurens Vanthoor on that previous lap? How has he lost so much time? The 150 car didn't change tyres, did Vanthoor?
Yes, I think he did. I thought he did.
So, why would WRT have done that? There's Stefan Ortelli's nervous face, because the 150 car has now taken the lead of the race away from the 17 machine of Ortelli, Vanthoor, and the man sat behind Vanthoor and Ortelli there, Stuart Leonard. Well, what a curious decision to be taken by WRT, because how independent are those cars run between one another? There's Vincent Vos having a chat with Ortelli, and he looks pretty surprised.
Yeah, Vanthoor's stop was 1 minute and 21 seconds, and the Mies stop was 1 minute and 2, so he's gained about 18.5 seconds on that pit stop, which has put him into the lead. So
it's about 20 seconds for a tyre change.
Yeah, exactly right. So the gamble is you try and double stint the tyres because they're not working as hard in the wet, and you get the race lead. But I would still have thought that Vanthoor on a fresh set of tyres will be able to get the lead back. But what it does set us up for is an enthralling final hour of the race.
Why is Winkelhock? We need to see, has Winkelhock double stinted his tyres? Is he now in front of Vanthoor as well? Because the timing screen suggests that the Phoenix Audi with Winkelhock at the wheel is now up into second position. We'll keep an eye out on that one, whether that 16 car is in front of the 17 car. 17 is ahead then. So 17 is ahead of the 16 car then, by the sounds of it. And so the timing screen's just not catching up. It must have been close though at the exit of the pits. That may be why it's close, because the timing beam will be after the pit exit. We'll try and pick them up for you.
Okay, Winkelhock's stop was 64 seconds.
Yeah.
So that would suggest, again, double stinting the tyres, and of course they were doing that earlier on. So the obvious thing to do is to put a fresh set on, but I think the assumption may have been that everybody else would do the same, and it's not panned out that way. So what we now have is the race leader, Christopher Mies, as Jack's been saying, 150 leads the way, thanks to double stinting the tyres. In second place, it is Vanthoor. He's 12 seconds back, but he's on fresh tyres.
Yep, absolutely.
It's game on.
And then Winkelhock was waiting for him to come across the line now. He's 9.5 seconds further back. So perhaps Mies had to double stint the tyres to hold off Winkelhock. Otherwise, if Mies had taken fresh tyres, he could well have come out behind Marcus Winkelhock. So it's still Mies, Vanthoor, Winkelhock, 12 seconds and 9.5 seconds, the gap between the two.
Okay, so 150 and 16, the two Audis of two different teams, both on used tyres. So now we'll see who's managed them better. Well, Mies was pushing, wasn't he? Because he caught and passed Team, and then he set off in pursuit, whereas Team, admittedly by going at a slower pace, maybe, just maybe, those tyres are in better nick because he hasn't asked quite so much out of them.
Maybe that was the plan all along, and he was taking care of his tyres rather than absolutely going for it.
It's a gamble.
Because, like Nicky Melnoff told me, they don't know if they have enough tyres to complete the race, so maybe this was the plan all along. Very interesting twist, just when we thought it was all over with 58 minutes to go.
Okay, so now we look at sectors. Sector 1, Vanthoor, 4 tenths quicker than Mies. Second sector, 8 tenths quicker than Mies. He's still going to be on for the win, I would have thought, but he's going to make it interesting for us. So this last hour, there's quite a lot to pan out of it yet.
Winkelhock in third, a second and a half slower than Vanthoor in sector 2. So I think that Phoenix Audi is still pretty out of it.
It might be worth a quick trip to WRT and get two sides of the story. Whose decision was it to change tyres and whose decision was it not to? What was the thinking behind that? I think Pierre Giordano was saying to you earlier on, wasn't it, that the word was strategy, and they've come up with all sorts of permutations, so it's worth having another go and trying to do something different. It might have secured second place, but what it's also going to give us is an enthralling final 57 minutes. Right, get your popcorn ready, this is going to be good. So we'll keep an eye to 150, and it's lap time. As I say, the sector times, he's lost 1 second in one sector alone. But this is the replay. Up on the jacks it goes. And the new tyres go on, so that confirms why it was a slower stop. It's not a slow stop per se, it's just slower than one that didn't bother to have a new set of tyres fitted. So it was a perfect pit stop in many ways. You know, driver stays in, fuel in, new tyres. But now, Stefano Ortelli, looking at the car that he's been driving, it's down in second place, but it's catching up. The gap is 9.4 seconds, so that effectively now is the starting point. 9.4 seconds between the top two. Winkelhock's lap time in third is a 2:23, so he's slower than Mies. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do for this, because Markus Winkelhock is normally a rapid driver, but Winkelhock now is dropping back in that third place. So what can he pull out of the bag before the very end? The very end is 56 minutes away. And then, of course, we've got the podium ceremony to come at the end of that. And there'll be lots of class winners to cheer home. So now, as the conditions improve, you can see how drivers are pushing again, running off the road there. 150, Christopher Mies up the outside of the Dominic Ang Ferrari. They almost lean on each other, and Mies has to switch sides. He has to treat that like a proper battle, and the Ferrari very nearly turns in on him. And that brings Caldarelli into the mix as well. And he's a lap down at the moment, Andrea Caldarelli. But he's there in fourth place, and Stefano Ortelli can barely watch. But I would have thought that the gap should still be doable for Vantor, but he's got 55 minutes in which to do it. So let's see. In the first sector of this lap, he was 9/10 quicker. In the second sector, he was only 2/10 quicker, but he is pushing, and the traffic will play a part in this, both for and against. As diving up the inside there is the leader, Christopher Mies, pushes on, and he has got to be absolutely ruthless in the traffic here. So as the field works its way up towards the end of lap 204. The lead car is Christopher Mies in number 150. The sister car is behind. And that was the first hour, the 11th hour, at which we had 150 as the leader. So it was there when it mattered in terms of the classification. But what's the gap going to be? 9.4 seconds it was last time. Up towards the timing line now comes the race leader. And past the pits goes Mies. Now, that lap was a 2:22.1, and Vantor on his last lap did a 2:18. This lap has yet to be completed. It's a 2:19. He's brought the gap from 9.4 to 6.5 seconds. He's still going to do it, but he's doing it the hard way. So Laurens Vantor then now has taken very nearly 3 full seconds out on that lap alone. It's 2.9 by which has come down. He's now going to try and thread away through the traffic. That's Alex Young, isn't it? He's going to negotiate 15. But Vantor should still be able to do this. He'll certainly catch, but the passing is going to be the really intriguing bit, because we saw earlier how hard it was for Christopher Mies to find a way past Nicky Thiem, and when it's for the race lead, it's going to be, especially for the last few minutes, for the actual win, not just the lead midway through the race. It's going to be fascinating to see how defensive Christopher Mies is and how Laurens Vantor attacks, and finally perhaps will make that move stick if he can. So there's still the race lead battle to pan out of all of this, and that's what we want to see. It's all very well talking about classes and lower positions, but when it's for the race lead, it really is something to savour. 53 minutes still to run. Out of turns 7 and 8 goes Christopher Mies, and in the first sector, the car 2/10 up on Vantor. Now, this is the number 150 pit stop. The stewards want to have a look at this. Now, you've got, count the number of people working on the car. You have a finite number of people who can work on the car. So you've got the 2 for the refuelers, and then when the extra mechanic steps forward and opens the door to double check the battery, that is an extra mechanic touching the car, and that, I think, is what they want to double check, because I need to go back to the regulations. It's carefully worded as to how many you can have, but there's a bit of finger wagging look from another of the engineers there to say, maybe you shouldn't have done that, but you are allowed for a refueling pit stop, the dead man, the car controller, the 2 for the refuel and the 2 for the tyres. But can anybody else work on the car after a pit stop is done? Or should it have gone into the garage? So that is perhaps what they are going to have a look at. Just make sure that the correct number of people worked on the car in that pit stop. So we'll go back to the regulations, try and get an answer to that as quick as we can, but the stewards will have a look at it as well. So Mies leads, the gap's going to go anyway. It would be a shame if the race order was to be affected by a late penalty, wouldn't it? But you could argue that if you get the procedure wrong in the pits, then you have to carry the can for that. So we've got the cars now on lap 206, and the race leader, Christopher Mies, was being caught by 6/10 in the first sector, and the second sector time will be ticked off in a moment. There in third place is Marcus Winkelhock, who is still lapping slower. In other words, he's still falling away, I'm afraid, from the WRT cars up the road. Now Winkelhock is on the lead lap still. Caldarelli in fourth place in the McLaren has now fallen away. But is he going to be caught by anybody? He's still a lap up on Maxime Soulet, who's taken over now in number 8 Bentley. So 150, Christopher Mies it is who leads the way. Just double checking this regulation about equipment. The regulations talk about 2 for the refuel, 2 for the tyres, and a 5th member, the car controller. And you would say that the guy with the battery was arguably the 6th, or because they didn't change tyres, notionally replaces a mechanic that would have been there for the tyre change. So you can offer a for and against for that, depending on your interpretation. But 2 people do the tyres. Now, if you're not having a tyre change, does that mean that you remove those mechanics from the regulation, or do you replace them by somebody doing a different task, but still within the same number of people? I suspect that there will be some serious discussions about that among the stewards at the moment. It is under investigation. The team's now being made aware of that on the timing screen. So Christopher Mies leads. The gap is down to 5.4 seconds. It wasn't as big a gain by Vantor as it had been on the previous lap, but it's fascinating to see how this is going to pan out now. The beneficiary could be Winkelhock, in a sense, if there is a penalty to be applied. I still think Vantor's going to get up with Mies before the end, but the lap time on that previous lap wasn't as good. 8/10 quicker, so quicker it was, but compared to taking out 2.9, it certainly wasn't as impressive. So Mies the race leader then, as the cars turn their way on lap 207, with now 49 minutes of the race to go. Got to say, actually, 12 hours has gone pretty quickly here at Sepang, and for the teams, they've been hard at work focusing on their strategies all the way through the race, and then having to adapt them during the stoppages. Although you might have thought it was an easy ride for them for an hour or two and lots of downtime, there are some that would have worked very, very hard indeed to try and get the data sorted out and plan ahead for the next element of the race. And WRT, yet again, proving it's one of the top teams in GT racing. There's a very slow car on track there, 42 it is. That's the Sport Garage Ferrari of Romain Brandella. And very, very slowly it was limping down towards turn number 9, so Brandella has got strife. 48 minutes of the race to go. And 150's pit stop is under investigation. There's the Sport Garage Ferrari. It limps on. It's down in 18th place. It's been a really anonymous car, though. I think the only time we've actually seen it is when it's had any dramas. When it's been going at a fairly okay pace, but it's just not really drawn attention to itself. But now, sadly, Romain Brandella has a problem and limps on back round towards the pit lane. So the race leaders continue. We are on lap 207, and in the first sector of the lap, fractionally quicker was Vantor. In the second sector, 2/10 quicker was Vantor, and the third sector completion half a second up. So he's piecing it together for 4 sectors on the lap. Here they come, up towards the timing point. The leader, Christopher Mies, will go through. And as he does so, that's 207 laps done. And Vantor is 4.4 seconds back. He's taken a second out on that lap. So that's a decent gain. 4.4 seconds it has come down to now. Christopher Hasse in the leading car is in the pits, and he is with Jack.
Christopher, it's all a bit nervous down here. Can Mies hold on?
Well, I mean, it looks pretty good so far, but the gap to our sister car is right now 4 seconds, and it's still 47 minutes to go. So, of course, it's kind of a game, but he's doing a fantastic job, and I'm pressing my thumb for him and for our team that we can stay in front. But at the end, yeah, we have to see what's going on. Right now, Lawrence is a little bit quicker, but that's racing.
Whose choice is it for you guys not to change tyres? Is that something you wanted to do, or is it higher up?
Well, we just did 2 different strategies. Because, I mean, of course, we want to achieve the best team performance. That's the first goal. And yeah, and so far we are in the front.
How hard is Christopher allowed to fight before he gets told off?
I mean, you can see how on his driving style, I think he's just on the maximum on the edge.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
And still, that car is under investigation for the pit stop, so the story may not necessarily end on the track. So we await news as Christopher Mies then leads. Christopher Hasse, his co-driver, or one of his 2, the other being Enzo Ida, sits in the pit lane and watches on pretty nervously, but nervous at the next pit box for 17 as well, where Stuart Leonard, who could be on for a famous debut here with Audi, and Stefan Ortelli, watch this man, Laurens Vanthoor, battle on towards the end of 12 gruelling hours. I know they've not actually been circulating for all 12, but the weather conditions have been gruelling in many ways. Over the timing line, he'll come shortly, but he's got turn 14 to negotiate soon, and Christopher Mies is still up the road ahead of him. The Sport Garage Ferrari limps on, so almost at the end of the in-lap here. And Vanthoor sliding his way up towards the line, over which in a moment should come Christopher Mies. He will go through now, and that's 208 laps done. Vanthoor is 2.8 seconds back. It's on, isn't it? Because with 45 minutes to go and 2.8 seconds, then we are going to have the lead change, and so it's a real dogfight now between the 2 leading Audis. Christopher Mies being caught by the team car of Laurens Vanthoor. So as they work their way now down towards turn 3, the way that he's going, Vanthoor could be up there within another lap and a half. So the lead, even though he's got 44 minutes in which to do it, it could change potentially in a couple of laps. Now that might be being a little bit optimistic about it, because you can guarantee that Christopher Mies will put up a really spirited defence, but let's see. Vanthoor is pushing. In the first sector, he's taken 2/10 out, so we're down to 2.6 seconds now. There is 150. That is Christopher Mies, who works his way out of turn 6 now. Still the rain is there, still the spray hangs in the air. Vanthoor is behind him. The gap is coming down and down and down as they work their way now on that 209 through turn 7 and 8. Up the curve goes Christopher Mies. Turn 9 they come, and in the middle sector, half a second pullback. So we could even here have the gap at under a second by the end of the lap. They could come across the line virtually together. There is Laurens Vanthoor, and of course once you can see the car that you're chasing, that just spurs you on even more. Vanthoor closing. They've got back markers to worry about. The lights flash from the race leader to warn the slower car up the road of the progress, and then they'll work their way, of course, once more towards the completion of the lap. It might be, as far as 150 is concerned, the extra mechanic working on the car. It could also be that he was over the yellow line, which marks out pit box from the pit apron, but it's still effectively the same thing, because by dint of being over the line, it was therefore judged to have worked on the car, so it's kind of all knitted together for the same thing, but it's still under investigation. We don't yet have an answer from the stewards as 150 heads up towards the line. So 2.8 seconds it was. Past the pits they come. Through goes Mies, through now goes Vanthoor. 1.7 from 2.8 to 1.7. So this is the lap on which they're going to get themselves together, and it's going to be lap number 210. and really, really pushing now is Vantor. He's got to get past the Bentley. Can you believe this? We're talking about Bentley's being lapped pre-race. They were a possible winner, but it's not been a great day, I'm afraid, for the Bentley boys. Number 8, Maxime Soulet at the wheel in 5th place and getting in the way of his fellow countryman. Laurens Vantor up the inside, goes through, and so now he puts a lap on the Bentley. He was 2/10 quicker in the first sector, but he may well have lost out in the second sector here as the cars work their way towards turn 4. Up the hill, through the traffic they go, and let's see in the second sector what that gap has come down to, if at all. It may be that back marker has just affected things. Car keeping out of harm's way there, as we see Christopher Mies up towards the end of sector 2. As he breaks the next timing loop, we'll see how he stacks up relative to Vantor, who is still hustling on behind him. So 33.7 for Mies, 33.2 for Vantor, another half a second pull back. Tremendous effort this as the cars work their way. They're now wide up over the curb goes the charging Vantor, but he really is pushing. So we've got 41.5 minutes of the race to go. There is Vantor, and he's almost now on the tail of number